This is Suit Up Sports. Suit Up Sports. Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports, our Super Bowl preview edition. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with 10-year NFL vet Frank Garcia. Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing great, buddy. I'm looking forward to this, and it's the game always. This 2-week period keeps me hungry for football and trying to figure out what to do in between.
It does, man. It keeps you hungry for football, and it almost puts you in mourning, knowing that after this game, you're not going to have football for a long damn time.
I was thinking about that just the other day. In fact, I was talking to, my girlfriend, and we were sitting there and, just saying, gosh, I mean, what am I going to do today? This was yesterday. What am I going to do? It's Sunday.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. Go to church, and you only have a routine.
And somehow when you were trying to figure that out, somehow you and I ended up at a bar for like 5 hours. Isn't that amazing? How
Talking sports.
I mean, when in doubt, go to a bar.
That's right.
And watch sports.
We watch basketball. College basketball is okay. Get the NBA, and you had the Pro Bowl on yesterday. But
good news is you got Charlotte FC starts up soon, and last year I found myself, obviously I played soccer my whole life, played in college, but I never really got in the MLS stuff. I'm a World Cup guy, but I don't watch the Premier League or whatever. So last year I told myself I was going to dive back in and try to get into the Charlotte FC stuff. And I did. And I'll tell you this, going to a game, I know we're doing the Super Bowl show, but just on topic, going to a Charlotte FC game is as fun as any game I've ever been to.
They do a good job.
I mean, it's a blast, and
it's a show for sure.
It is a show. I mean, and the crowd. I mean, it really is
great for kids.
Oh, and you've got the drums and the trumpets, and it's great. So this year, I'm going to take another leap because they're going to be good this year. And they had a good year last year, but this year they should be really good. And then NASCAR. I used to be a huge NASCAR guy. I carried NASCAR for all those years.
I remember coming to your house 25 years ago, down in your basement.
Yep.
And you'd have NASCAR parties.
Yeah,
and we'd bet on. Yeah, we'd bet on the cars. We bet on laps. We basically bet on anything.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing. We're talking about betting because we're going to be joined later on by
Steve Merril.
Yeah, Steve Merril.
Yeah, from Pro Sports Info. Steve Merril is going to join us here in a little while and handicap the football game for you, the Super Bowl, as well as go through some props and some fun stuff like that. But yeah, my kids, Dylan and Connor, who are both 22, 23 years old now. Last year they really got into NASCAR, and it was funny because I'd taken them to races and all this stuff when they were younger. But when they're young, it's hard to keep them sitting still, and NASCAR's long, and
well, they're old, it's hard to keep them sitting still.
Well, now at least that when they're not sitting still, they can go grab a drink. They're gambling on freaking one of the apps. If you go in the infield, that's always a party. So now they figured it out. So it's kind of brought me back into NASCAR. So, yesterday you and I signed up for a NASCAR league with some dudes at the bar, and
didn't even know what it was doing, but here's $20.
Yeah. And Connor and Dylan I got them a team in it. So they'll have some fun with it. And then we sat in here last night and watched the Clash, and that was actually, we had a fun time watching it. So NASCAR helped fill that void a little bit. And NASCAR, I call that like a come and go sport. Like you watch the beginning, and then you can go make a drink, get something to eat, whatever, come back in an hour, and then, watch the last.
Get the updates.
Exactly.
I'm not a gearhead, so I don't follow NASCAR like maybe some other people here in the South do. I'm more of a, there's nothing more boring than watching NASCAR on TV. Other than maybe baseball on TV. That's the two things. And I'd rather watch baseball, to be honest.
Baseball is my favorite.
So the good news is that after all of this, we'll at least have the draft to kind of consume us and talk about.
Yeah. And we'll dive deep into that because the Panthers are set up nicely. They've got, I believe, 9 picks, and I think 6 of those are the top 150 picks. They got the 8th pick in the draft, which they've had, I believe, 4 times in history. And I believe the 4 guys they got were Tim Biakabatuka, who was good until he hurt his knee. Christian McCaffrey, we know that story. Luke Kuechly, we know that story. And J.C. Horn, who had a really
still
good
to
year
be
this
determined.
Year. Yeah. So they've had good luck at the 8th
2 of those are going to be Hall of Famers.
Yeah. And I think when you pick at 8, I think it takes a lot of pressure off because everyone says we're going to take the best player available. We're not just picking to fill a hole. And I think that it's true in some instances. But when you have the first pick or the second pick and you need a quarterback, obviously you're taking a quarterback. there could be a great running back, but you're probably going to, if you have a hole at defensive end or DB, like you're going to, at 8, I think you truly can sit back and go, we'll take the best player. And even though the Panthers need defense, everyone knows that. But when you're at 8, you can either take the best player, even if it's a receiver, or you and I were discussing this before the show, you could trade back. So the Panthers, in my opinion, are sitting pretty for this draft. That, we'll see what kind of money they have from a free agent standpoint once they do their cuts and redo contracts and all those things. Right now, I think they're sitting around $40 million under, but that includes having to pay the draft guys. So they're not going to have a lot of room until they start restructuring things, and I think they'll be in the middle of the pack by that point.
Yeah, I think a lot of the way that GMs do it, more so today than maybe even when we were playing, is that you just look at talent and you say, okay, that guy's pretty good. I think they have positional value that they give these guys, and quarterback, let's say it's a 10.
Yeah,
that's going to add to whatever the player, his skill level is, and
yeah,
that's why quarterbacks are always going to be the most coveted players, because they touch the ball the most impactful. But then you go to a defensive end or wide receiver, and
DB.
you have positional impact, and that adds to wherever that grade is of that player. And I think that's the way you say, or you determine best player available. And Dan Morgan's been around this game a long time. He was a hell of a player. He's doing a good job, in my opinion, as GM.
I think he had a really good. I'd give him a B- probably on the first year.
I would give him higher than that, because of the depth that you're going to have, and obviously getting some players that the offensive line, I think, was the biggest hole last year. Guess what?
He fixed it.
It was the biggest strength this year,
no doubt.
So when you're making those types of improvements from worst to best on that team, at least, I mean, they're not the best in the NFL, but
they're top 10, and they were the worst.
They significantly improved, and that's a gold star for the guy picking.
No doubt. Yeah, I think the Panthers are set up great, and hopefully sooner rather than later we'll be doing our Super Bowl preview show, and we'll be doing it from Radio Row because the Panthers are in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be great. Hopefully that's sooner rather than later, but I think they've got some pieces, and I think they're in a good spot this year to take a jump.
A long way to go, however, before we get to the position that we're going to be talking about, or the game that we're going to be talking about here shortly. And that's the Super Bowl. But there's some hope, at least, with the Panthers. But when you look at these two teams that are playing, even though they played Kansas City to a last minute drive, they led somewhere tied, at least tied it up in that game. I was at the game, and the ups and downs as a Panther fan. My son was sitting there cheering 1 minute, loud as he could be, yelling and screaming, doing all the dancing, and the next thing it's the agony of defeat, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And he was in tears, crying because the Panthers had lost that game. And that's what Patrick Mahomes, has the ability to do. When you look at, his record in one-score games,
it's unbelievable.
17 in a row. And this isn't college football or high school where you have a dominant team.
No.
This is the NFL, where the difference between winning and losing is one play here, one play there. He is 17-0, and his last 17 attempts. So he can't get any better.
Well, when I was breaking this game down, and for some reason I've been really good at picking Super Bowls for going on. I mean, literally, I can go back to when you were with St. Louis, Greatest Show on Turf, and you guys played Tom Brady and the Patriots, and y'all were laying 14. The infamous cheating game where they recorded your practices, but I took the 14 points thinking I win money, and my good buddy gets a ring. Won the points, not the ring part, unfortunately. But this one has been tough to pick, man. I've been diving into this, and here's the thing: if you and I sit down right now, and we are as part of our previous show, we look at all the different positions, and if I said to you, "Okay, Frank, who has the best offensive line?"
Philadelphia.
Exactly, and I think everyone would agree. I'm writing this down because I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. Who has the best running game?
Philadelphia. Saquon Barkley is arguably the MVP and probably the best running back in the game.
No doubt. No one has slowed him down. Not stopped him.
I mean, his over and under for this game against the Chiefs is 125. And I can tell you, if he gets 125, the Eagles are going to win the game.
Yeah, I would agree. Wide receivers.
I would say wash. I would say wash at wide.
Philadelphia.
I would say wash at wide receiver. The speed that Kansas City has, and some of the playmakers, and I'm including Kelsey in that. In the offense. So Because of that, Kansas City and the passing game is a wash, in my opinion.
I think AJ Brown is the best receiver on the field, and I think
most talented, no doubt.
And I think Devontae Smith is the second best receiver on the field. I think Kelsey obviously is the best tight end, but I think Goddard tore them up last time. And again, we're going to talk handicapping with Steve Merril from Pro Sports Info, who has been on our shows going back 15, 20 years. He's great about some of this.
Yeah, and I'm basing
Goddard tore him up.
I'm basing this not on who had the biggest impact in the game they played last. I'm talking about talent.
Well, I'm with you, and I think AJ Brown and
and
Devontae Smith are the best receivers on the field.
I would say AJ Brown is probably the most talented player, and then I would say Travis Kelce would be the next most talented. And the difference between those two is not very far. Then you add Worthy into the mix, they
got Hollywood Brown back, and he's been good. So I think that Kansas City.
You also have to factor in who's throwing them the ball.
True, but I mean, listen, we'll get to that position, but I would lean Philly in receivers. You would lean KC.
Yeah,
you said equal or whatever.
I say Kansas City has a better passing game than Philadelphia.
Well, that's different than receivers, because having a better passing game is different. I mean, Kansas City definitely has a better passing game because Philadelphia doesn't have to pass as much, and if that, like you said, if that happens in this game, if Jalen Hurts throws the ball 18, 20 times in this game, that means that they're running the hell out of it. It means they win the game. Mm-hmm. And if we go, so tight ends we already covered in the receivers. Defensive line, who you got the best?
Chris Jones is a beast, man. But,
he is.
I think Philadelphia has three of those. So I would
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter has been, literally, the same impact that Jones has had for Kansas City. He's just maybe Jones is a little bit bigger, but yeah, I would say Philadelphia. I mean, if we're looking at NFL stats, and we want to use that as a measuring stick.
Well, I'm just using your test.
I'm telling you, I mean, the number one defense and the number one rushing game in all of football.
Yeah.
So, they stop the run and they run the ball. I mean, that's what Philadelphia does better than anybody else. So, yeah, I'd be an idiot not to say Philadelphia has a better defensive line.
And then DBs. Philadelphia's got the two rookies that have been really good.
And so is Kansas City. I would say if you're looking at improvement from last year to this year, that's their biggest. It's not been on offense. It's been on the defensive side. And their secondary, they are all over guys. And on top of that, they have a coordinator that's aggressive. So I would say Kansas City I would give them, with Gardner, for Philadelphia, I would still lean Kansas City on DBs. I'm
going to lean with Kansas City with you on that. I think that with Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson, I think Kansas City has two great young corners. McDuffie is the better of the two, but a really good young duo. And Philadelphia with the two rookies who have been outstanding this year. Really, the only reason I'm giving an edge to Kansas City is just experience.
Yeah,
you got two rookie DBs going up against Mahomes and all that speed. Even though they've held up great this year and they're both great players, but I would agree with you on Kansas City getting the edge on DBs. Then let's go to linebackers, which I think, I think again it's a close fight. Zach Bond for Philadelphia this year has just been incredible.
The funny thing was he was playing defensive end.
I know his story is nuts. I mean, he was a defensive end at Wisconsin. New Orleans picked him up.
They picked him up as a rush edge, and kind of that outside backer that's going to drop off. And Philadelphia saw something. They cut him. And Philadelphia saw something. Said, let's make him a middle linebacker.
I know. Which by the way, I mean,
I think he has 7 interceptions.
He's a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, and a bunch of forced fumbles and fumble. I mean, the guy's been all over the field.
He's unbelievable, and he would look great in a Panthers uniform, by the way, and would fill a need big time. But that's a different story. But I would lean Philadelphia. But again, Kansas City has very active linebackers, so that could be a wash. And then when you go to special teams, right? Like, okay, punters, whatever. They both have good punters.
Kickers, Harrison Butker's,
you gotta take him.
Yeah, he's the best in the game.
I mean, Elliott's struggling.
There's a reason why they're 17-0, and he's a big part of that.
No doubt.
The last time these guys played, he won the game last time they played Buffalo. I don't know if you remember the 57-yard or 62-yard field goal that he kicked to put him into overtime to even give Mahomes a chance. The guy's been Mr. Clutch in the playoffs. Very similar to what Justin Tuck was before.
Tucker.
Justin Tucker.
Tuck is what he would ask the masseuse.
Well, we don't know. Those are allegations, but allegedly. But between him and Vinatieri, Harrison Butker's every bit as good as those two guys, and probably has a better leg than Vinatieri, not Tucker. Tucker has the best leg of all of them.
Yeah, no, you're right. I give Kansas City the lean on special teams as well, and then coaching. Look,
Andy Reid.
You got to go Kansas City.
Andy Reid.
I mean, Andy Reid could be the best or top 3, 4, 5 coach in the history of the league. I think he is, period. And then when you go to Spagnuolo on defense, and this is what's going to be really interesting because I think he's by far the best defensive coordinator in the league. I would say a second, Vic Fangio, Philadelphia's defensive coordinator. Both these guys have been successful wherever they go. Both of these guys have made chicken salad out of chicken shit before when they lose players or next man up or whatever.
Well, they run a system. They have experience. They have great timing.
Vic Fangio, wasn't he the defensive coordinator your first year with the Panthers?
He was here with the Panthers,
yeah.
And that's the reason why Dom Capers decided to walk away. Because
Jerry wanted to fire
Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
Dom said no. He's our guy. He's my guy. It's not. He's doing everything he can in his power to. Put these guys in position. It's not because of our coordinator. Don't put him as a fall guy because he's a damn good coach. So, Dom fell on the sword for Vic, and Vic went on to Indianapolis where he had a lot of success there, and probably a couple of other teams. But
he's been
2 or 3 places since then. But every team he's been on has always had success.
Yeah, so you do have arguably the 2 best defensive coordinators of football.
I think one's a little bit more aggressive than the other. I think Fangio is more of a zone defense kind of guy, zone blitz type of player, coordinator, going back from his days with the Panthers. He'll dial it up every now and then, but he's going to be prepared. He's going to have his guys in the right position. And, that's what Mahomes, the impact of Mahomes is that if you play him in zone, he's going to pick apart the middle of the field. If you play him in man, he can use his legs to beat you.
Yep.
If he breaks contain. So, it's going to be a lot of incumbent upon those 4 down guys for Philadelphia. If they decide to play some man and bring some pressure, to make sure that they have the ability to tackle Mahomes and stay in their lanes and push the pocket.
Yeah, I think up the middle with those 2, with Carter, and Jordan Davis, those big dudes on Philadelphia, I think that's going to be interesting because Kansas City's offensive line is solid, but it may be the weakest part of their team, and it's good, but it's not great. You mentioned their defense. This is the best defense, in my opinion, that Kansas City's had during this run.
I think that's what I said. The biggest difference was between where their improvement was from last year to this year is on the defensive side.
Yeah,
when we were talking about DBs.
Yeah, and Philadelphia's defense went from, I want to say, being one of the worst rated last year to being top 1, 2, 3.
No, Philadelphia's always been up there. I mean,
I think last year they literally were rated like 28th. They had a shitty year last year on defense, and that's why Fangio comes in, fixes it. I mean, literally, I think they went from like 28th to 1st or 2nd. So the matchup is about as even as you're going to see.
Well, that's why there's a 1.5 point spread in Kansas City, and Vegas knows where the money is going to be because of the record that they have.
Give me a matchup. So when I'm breaking this game down and I'm trying to decide who I'm going to pick and bet and some of those things. There's some matchups that stand out that are going to be crucial during the game, and without talking about every one of them, the one that I'll start with is Dallas Goedert, who he's hurt a lot. He was hurt a lot this year, but since he's come back, he's been a beast. And the last time they played Kansas City, he was a beast. Matter of fact, one of the biggest bets as of today is Goddard over his yardage in the prop bet. I took it the day.
Well, do you remember what the number was?
It was like, I want to say 45.5, and I think it's gone up to like maybe 52.
45.5 yards.
I think it's gone up to like 52.5 now. It's moving around a little bit, but I took it right after
the needle like that.
It's moved. Yeah, I didn't move it. I can tell you that. I looked at my damn
bank account.
I looked at the
portfolio,
the gambling app that I use, and I didn't even know it showed you your lifetime betting, like how much you spent. And it wasn't that bad, but I'm down $2,000 total, like in the last
over
2
your
years.
Life.
Yeah, because I only
not bad
on this app, however long we've been using those apps in North Carolina. Was with a guy that was I think he had totally bet $4 million, and I think he's up like $1,000.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, holy crap!
They don't build those big casinos in Vegas by them losing.
You ain't lying. I know.
The funny thing is that even though his app shows up, if you think about $4 million wagered, think about the juice that had to be paid off that, and where's that go?
Yeah,
right to that.
I don't
building.
know if it includes. I'm sure it includes that. I would think.
Yeah, I'm sure, but still, you think about it, if he's even both sides.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who wins?
My loss.
If you're even, if you win, if you're betting $4 million and you're even, who won?
Oh yeah, the
house.
Vegas. Yeah,
Vegas.
Juice.
They always win.
Yeah,
that's the way they win.
My money just helped build like a little janitor closet, like on the basement floor.
Yeah.
But still, I didn't even know it did that until a buddy of mine showed me. But I think Dallas Goedert is going to be a crucial matchup because he's been looking so good lately. He's a great safety blanket for Hurts. Hurts loves throwing him the ball, and you got to think that Spagnuolo is going to do anything he can to slow down Barkley, right? Which no one's been able to do yet. Spagnuolo, knows Barkley's game well, but
I think there's going to be times, and that's going to be the cat mouse game. The strategy that goes into a game is that, you let Barkley loose, from 20 to 20. You don't stuff the box until he gets, inside that 20, and then you start loading it up and, trying to make them kick field goals. And that's the biggest probably advantage that I think the Eagles have, is because of their size differential at most teams, and being able to move guys off the ball. But we saw it last week with Buffalo trying to do it against Kansas City. What did Kansas City do? They stuffed them. And Josh Allen was pretty successful at running that sneak, regardless if they had the push or not. I mean, I think
it didn't help that everybody in the world watching the game knew that when Josh Allen did it, he was going off the left guard every single freaking time. And they don't line up like Philadelphia does.
Well, can I tell you that everybody in the world knows when Philadelphia is running their quarterback sneak. The difference is they have 350 in the inside across the board that can stay low and are powerful, coupled with a running back at quarterback and two guys pushing. So Goddard's another pusher that they can use. They can also use him as an extra running back to put him and take the snap to have him, with a little bit more beef behind there. So the difference is it's coming. Can you stop it? Kansas City knew it was coming. They had the ability to match up and stop it. Are they able to do that against Philadelphia on those critical 4th and 1, 4th and inches plays where they're going to get more push up front and neutralize, that position where he doesn't get across the line?
I still think they're not. I mean, that's been pretty damn unstoppable. I mean,
that's because I'm telling you why.
I don't know if Kansas City is good as they were against Josh Allen. I don't think that translates.
I agree, because they don't have the same three guys up front. The center, the left guard is 6'8", 350, and was a fullback in rugby, scoring touchdowns, making guys miss. He's athletic. He's big. He's probably the best guard in the game. And I'm not.
Their offensive line's the best offensive line.
I mean, Chris Lane or the Lane at the right tackle. I mean,
Lane
Johnson. Lane Johnson at right tackle. Doesn't give up sacks. He's have you ever seen a guy? He looks like he's 340 pounds, not an ounce of fat. And this guy is ripped at 340.
Oh, yeah, they're huge.
So these guys are athletic, big, physical creatures with a quarterback and a running back that are both capable of running through a guy without those guys.
Yep.
So, I mean,
And when teams have been run blitzing Saquon, if that guy doesn't get him, he's gone.
That's it.
Like
I mean, that's the key to any blitz.
Yeah, I mean, but with Saquon this year, it's even been different. Like, if the first guy misses, a lot of these other guys may run for 15, 20 yards. Saquon's taking it 60 or 40.
He has that fifth gear.
Yeah,
and that's why he's should have broke the rushing record.
Well, even the big run against Washington last week, where they missed the tackle on a blitz, he broke it, and then he broke another tackle, and he spun through another tackle, and then he was gone.
Yeah, you're not tackling him in open space.
Yeah, that's what
you make the first guy miss. And that's what Philadelphia has been able to do, is that when you blitz, DJ, I've talked about this before schematically, you're looking at lanes. And if I'm looking at a 3 foot window, which I can make a tackle, I don't have to slow down if I'm a defensive player. But if I expand that 3 foot to 6 foot, now I have to break down in space. Even if I'm a free hitter, if I'm a safety coming down from outside the box and I come down and I'm in the hole ready to make a play, he has the ability to make you miss with 6 feet.
Yep.
The Eagles do a great job of expanding those holes because of their talent they have up front.
Yep. And
that's where he has the ability to make guys miss. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because it's not just about the blitz. Like I said, most guys are going to, be able to run through, wrap up that guy, whoever it is, Derrick Henry, whoever, because the offensive line isn't getting that type of spacing. So if you do it and you hit, it's going to be a nice, but if you don't, It's 88 now at the gate.
And Cook for Buffalo last week ran the ball very well against Kansas City. I think he had 15 touches for around 100 yards.
He ran it where? 20-20, really well. You get inside the red zone.
Yeah, but
Kansas City's going to clamp down a little bit. They're going to force you to beat you with the receiver.
That's true. And Cook has been a great red zone running back this year. I mean, he's been great. I also thought Buffalo's play calling was pretty. I mean, he wasn't even on the field there last.
Well, I mean, the fact they reverted to quarterback sneaks on 6 plays.
Exactly.
I mean, and they got
and it was the same
them.
sneak.
Yeah, they got
every time.
They got 2 of them.
Guard.
They got 2 of them, but they missed on 4. They didn't get anything on 4.
Yeah, and Cook, as good as he is, and he is, man, he's legit. Saquon's a different. I mean, this year Saquon's a different ball game, and so it's going to be interesting to see what Kansas City does to stop him, and how much they do sell out to stop him. And then, if you're Philadelphia, I'm sure as you're doing your game plan this week, you're game planning that they're going to do everything they can to stop him. So when they're in this look, what are we going to do here? I think AJ Brown is another one who, he had a decent game last week, and before that he had been kind of quiet. He's just due to have a big game, man. And he's a stud. So I think AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert are going to have good games for Philadelphia from a receiving standpoint. And I think that obviously what you said, if Saquon gets 100+ yards, there's a very good chance that Philadelphia wins.
If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs and I'm playing the Philadelphia Eagles and I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm going to take my chances. I'm going to put 8 in the box. I'm going to play some sort of cover 3 behind it, maybe even man up, and, load the box up to try to stop Saquon. If you can't stop the run, you can't win the game. The team that runs the ball the best, the team that stop the run the best, 90% of the time is going to win the game. There's 3 stats that we talk about, for analytics when they're key stats, and running the ball, 100+ yards, 30+ times is always going to be the top one. Turnovers is another one.
Yeah.
And when you throw the ball, you have bad things can happen. You have good things. One good thing, you catch the ball, you make a good play, but there's 3. You get sacked, you lose yards. You get a tip ball, you get an interception, or you throw an interception, right? Or an incomplete pass. There's more things that can happen when you throw the ball than when you run the ball. And if you can run the ball, you have a chance to beat anybody, and that's where Philadelphia runs the ball better than anybody. But unfortunately, for them, there's another guy on the other side named Mahomes. That if you keep that, you're going to play what happens also when you play close games, you control the clock, you control the tempo, you're able to hit those body blows for those home runs, for those play action passes later. And that's what Washington did the same thing, except they had AJ Brown that could beat the corner and get on that fade route on 4th and 1.
And Washington just missed tackles. I mean, every time they seem to try to get back there. And again, look, it's not easy.
They were getting pushed around up front.
That offensive line, it does. I mean, listen, as a Giants fan, when Philadelphia, one of my best friends, Kevin Hussey's a big Eagles fan, I told him, I'm like, dude, he's going to be a stud. Like he's going to go from playing behind a crap offensive line his whole career to now playing behind.
He's the same. He was the same draft McCaffrey was, and he was the one guy in that draft that I thought, okay, that's better. He's the better running back than McCaffrey.
I don't know. I don't think he was McCaffrey. I think McCaffrey's draft was the guys like
no, you're right. It was
Fournette.
Yeah, you're right.
Cook,
You're right. It was the year after.
And
it was the year after that.
But Saquon never had an offensive line in New York ever. And so, I mean, I'll give you a great example. So Saquon goes from a crappy offensive line to Philadelphia, and now he's having the best, year of his career, and he's killing it. Then you get Miles Sanders, Pro Bowl running back at Philadelphia, comes to the Panthers and struggles mightily his first year.
Why?
Because he went from having the best offensive line to the worst.
That's right.
My point.
You're right. 100%.
I mean, so you see that difference, and
I said that when they paid him all that money. It's like a terrible decision. He's not the type of back that we needed. We needed a big Dante Foreman type of running back.
What they needed was just more offensive linemen.
We let
use that money on the O-line.
We let Dante Foreman go to the Falcons, and we replaced him with Sanders. And Sanders isn't the same type of back, and we didn't have that type of offense. We don't have the type of offense that's going to spread people out and dink and dunk and throw the ball everywhere. And that's where Christian McCaffrey, made hay. But when you have a rookie quarterback, you're not going to put the ball in his hand. You're going to put the ball in running back's hands and lean on the offensive line. And it was just a bad recipe for success.
It was, and I just use that point to just show you that that's how good that damn offensive line in Philadelphia is. I mean, running behind that, even like Gainwell and Boston from years past, these guys who are just okay running backs were really like Gainwell. I'm sure is going to sign somewhere and get a nice contract because
it's the trickle down effect, really, DJ. When you think about it, right? When you look at successful offenses at any level, right? You're going to start with who? Number one, you start with the quarterback.
Yep.
Can he get rid of the ball on time? Can he make reads? Can he make me look good as an offensive? I don't have to hold my block for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, the ball's thrown. I can be more aggressive as an offensive lineman. If I have a running back that can help that, right? A quarterback that can spread the field is going to help what? The running back. It's going to help the running game because he's going to spread the field, right? Versus if you're predictable and I can't throw the ball and I'm not going to put the ball in this guy's hand because we're going to just we're going to take our chances, let them play to their weaknesses, and we're going to take away their strength, then, it puts a lot of pressure on an offense. The Eagles don't have really any pressure on them because they have 2 running backs in the backfield, basically a wildcat with the quarterback and the running back. They both scored 3 rushing touchdowns last week.
Right. I mean, that's the thing between Hurts, Barkley, Mahomes, there was a lot of running touchdowns, man. Like, this is going to be, I mean, arguably, I was trying to think about this today, and these 2 teams obviously have played before, but seeing Mahomes and Hurts, like, these are 2 quarterbacks that can throw it, that can run it, that, obviously Mahomes is a better thrower than Hurts. Hurts, tougher, probably more physical runner than Mahomes, especially now, although
Hurts is a much better runner than Mahomes.
Yeah, Mahomes runs when he needs to.
Mahomes runs when the pocket breaks down.
Yeah.
Hurts can run his design plays. Right. So he's much better. Obviously, Mahomes is much better of a, pocket passer and being able to diagnose and read defenses. And, the thing that we're really not talking about, in last week's game or last game they played with Buffalo, when you look at Kansas City and Buffalo, the difference in that game, everything was equal. But the difference in the game were the 2 play calls when Andy Reid had been in those positions before and dialed one up for the running back to come out of the backfield and isolate him against a linebacker in space for a 3-yard gain when they needed 1.
Yep.
Right? That was the one time. And the other time, they ran their offense. Kansas City in 4th and 1, they didn't resort to, quarterback sneaks.
Yeah.
And
they sealed the game on that little screen pass to Perrine.
Or the rollouts, the quick rollouts. You get into that tight formation, you roll out Mahomes, you have him on the play that Cam Newton, doesn't like to run. They run it twice for one for first down, the other one for a touchdown. And you have the guy open that so run pass option. If that DB takes the quarterback, I throw it to the running back or the player that's in front. If they take the run, I just keep running and get the first down. And it's basically unstoppable because you're packed in tight. So Andy Reid dialed those plays up because he knew, what defense that Buffalo was going to be in, and he won the chess match.
Yep.
That's part of the brilliance of a play caller is the timing of when you call plays. And you couldn't dial up a better play call for those situations, and that's why Andy Reid is going to the Hall of Fame. That's why Andy Reid is going for, as well as Mahomes, going for their 3rd in a row because of that.
Yeah, and listen, anyone who's ever went for a 3-peat, and I was reading articles, whether it be, Pat Riley and the Lakers or whoever, they'll all sit there and tell you. Terry Bradshaw was when I was reading where, he was going for one with the Steelers, and he was like, before the season, he was like, it ain't going to happen. Going for a 3-peat's impossible. Like, it's just so much pressure and so many things have to go right, and there's just no way Kansas City's going to do it. And now the season's over, and Bradshaw is like, man, I have to change my mind because just watching these guys play and the way they're coached, there's just, how do I bet against them? And he's got a damn good point. And I think that's why when
17-0.
Yeah. And when you're breaking these stats down and you're looking at these matchups,
Eagles.
Exactly.
How is Kansas City favored by 1.5?
Exactly.
That's what.
And then you go, well, they got the best player in football.
Yep.
And
the best coach in football.
And it doesn't mean they're going to win. I mean, look, I think Philadelphia, honestly, this game to me is a pick 'em.
So 1.5 point spread. That's
either way. You're going to bet who you think's going to win the game. The spread's not really going to matter.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a 3 to 7 point game like it was last time, I think. And, but yeah, when you look on paper, Philadelphia, we wrote them down a lot more than we did Kansas City when we were breaking down the matchups, and even all those matchups it didn't like one team so much better than the other, but at quarterback, both teams have damn good quarterbacks, but Mahomes is the best player in the NFL, not just quarterback, the best player.
So here's a question I want to ask Steve later, because you're just talking about the 1 point spread. What's the purpose of a 1 point spread in a game where there's no ties?
I don't know how those guys.
Do you understand what I'm asking?
I do.
So why is Kansas City a 1 point instead of a pick 'em? If it's a pick 'em, then the same thing's going to apply.
But I would
there's not going to be, you can't win. I mean,
it probably just honestly
be a push, I guess, if Kansas City won by one.
Yeah, and the juice that would go with that if you were to lose, I guess. I mean, I buy the hook and whatever on games like that.
Well,
anyway.
So I think it's 1.5. So you're going to get the hook. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll buy it even down to 1. Like I hate getting beat by a hook. But you're right. I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting. Steve may know that question actually. Steve Merril again. He's coming on with
it's to get people to pick a side.
Yeah, and in this side, in the NFL in general, the team that wins the game usually covers the spread,
especially when it's 1 point and a no tie game.
And the over under is 49.5. And no one's going to stop Mahomes from scoring. They're going to score, and I don't think the Eagles are going to get shut down either. Well, so the over to me seems like a pretty safe bet.
There's been teams in years past, in the Super Bowl where they have slowed Mahomes down. It's 1916 against the San Francisco 49ers a couple of years ago. It might have been Mahomes' first one, so it might have been 3 or 4 years ago. But they scored 16 points, kicked the field goal late to tie it up to go into overtime, where Mahomes, obviously won it. San Francisco, I believe, jumped off sides a couple of times. They had a punt. Got the ball back to Mahomes when Mahomes went down there, and they kicked the field goal to win the game to beat the Niners. But I mean, that's not a high scoring game.
No, not at all.
So who's going to make the more mistakes? I guess here's the question. I guess if you're really looking, who's the most pressure on? Who's more pressure on in this game? Is it Kansas City, or is it Philadelphia? What pressure does Philadelphia have to win? Yeah, of course, both teams have that pressure. But to three-peat, to what you were saying earlier, that's where the pressure's at. You're expected to.
Yeah, Kansas City, I would think, has the most pressure. However, they also have the most experience handling pressure. Now, this is a new kind of pressure, going for 3. I mean, they haven't had that yet. But playing in the amount of Super Bowls that Mahomes have, and the fact that a lot of these guys have played in the last
experience,
2, and the fact they've also,
just because you have experience doesn't take that pressure away.
No, but it helps you deal with it better, I think.
Yeah, of course it does.
And I was reading a story about Philadelphia and how a couple of the players that were on the team that lost to Kansas City 2 years ago in the Super Bowl said that the length of the halftime at the Super Bowl, and then coming out after the halftime show and all those things rattled them, and it threw them off their normal cadence, and they played like crap in the second half for the most part. And he was saying that now, because the majority of us have been through that, we're going to be out now. We're going to know what to expect. And so we know that the halftime's gonna be a little longer, so we change the way we do it. When we come out, we change. And it was really interesting because as a fan, we will even sit there too sometimes and like, God almighty, how long is this damn halftime? Well, as a player, you've done this. So let's ask you for your experience. You've been in the Super Bowl. So you're in the locker room, and I don't know how much Mike March, your coach at the time, talked to you guys about length of halftime and all that stuff, if he did or didn't. I guess he did.
If you remember, 2 years previous to that, I was not on that team, but they had played and won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So a lot of those guys were carryovers.
So they've been
Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, Oz Hakeem, Torrey Holt, Dre Bly, Orlando Pace, Adam Timmerman has been in a couple of Super Bowls and won.
Yep.
All the guys that we had played,
Ricky Prohl
had been in a couple and won. So we had already experienced that. The difference for us was the expectation of 14 points.
Right.
And the pressure that put on us to go out there and play.
Yeah, 2 touchdown favorites.
Yeah, and all of a sudden we're looking in the first half, and we're in the dogfight. They're kicking they're roughing up our receivers.
What was the score at halftime of that game?
Like 13-3.
Yeah, so it was something like that. Yeah,
13. It was we're two scores down, still attainable for us.
But at halftime, when you're in there and March, you talk to your players, you talk to your coach, whatever. March comes in, does his whatever. Did the length of the halftime, and I don't know if the halftimes are longer now than they were then for the Super Bowl. They've always been longer.
They've always been about 10, 15 minutes.
Seems like, yeah.
So yes, that was a noticeable thing. The whole game for me was kind of a flash because everything was out of sorts.
Right.
So from the time you get there to the security, through all the things that you had to do to prepare for the game, to being in the interview, build up, everything else, everything. It wasn't, we're creatures of habit.
Yep.
We get up at 10, we go take a shower, we go lift, we, go to our meetings, we go to lunch, we go work, we go practice, we come back, we meet every day, right? You create a pattern and you become a creature of habit.
Yep.
Super Bowl is so far out of that, right? Unless you've experienced that. We didn't have panic going into that halftime being down. Right. We had confidence knowing that we're going to make some adjustments. This is how we're going to adjust. This is what we're going to do. In the second half, we won. But, the deficit was we made up 10 points. They had the 53-yard field goal to beat us with Tom Brady. And, these teams aren't going to have that type. They're going to have, both of them have that experience. So unless you're a first-year guy on these teams.
Well, that's why I think that Philadelphia will be, like I said, they were saying that they came out second half of the last time they played them, and they were horrible for a while. Yeah, and they were just off. They also
didn't have who?
Well, they didn't have Saquon, that's for sure.
So he takes a lot of headaches away when you're running the ball and you're coming out flat. What you do, you give it to him. He takes a lot of that pressure off of you, and that's to me the biggest difference between this time and the last time these two teams played. There's similar teams, but there's some differences, and that's the biggest one is Saquon in the backfield for Philadelphia.
I agree. I think that's the biggest, and I think that Kansas City's defense has improved, but I also think this Philadelphia defense is a lot better than the last one. I mean, except like I said, you can hit them on the fact that their two DBs are rookies, but those rookies are not playing like DBs. So the experience part, that hurts a little bit. I would think Kansas City has that advantage, but but both defenses are better. Saquon, though, I mean,
well, here's where
they added a MVP basically.
The favor goes to the matchup goes to Andy Reid, because of what we talked about even in the last game against Buffalo. He's never going to get shaken. He has an answer for every situation. There, when you play in the NFL, it's not like college or in high school where you go out there and you just run off it. You play situational football. Mm-hmm. You play down and distance. You play you practice in the red zone. And Andy Reid, very similar to Bill Belichick, has his team more prepared for situational football than anybody in the NFL, and he does a phenomenal job of doing that. So when players get in those situations, they know exactly how to operate. They're cool, calm, and collective. Patrick Mahomes is at the helm. He's calm. That's the reason why him and Kelsey are able to improvise, because they're given flexibility. It's like the old Lakers. How do you stop the triangle, right? I mean, the triangle is built on ball movement, control. But Jordan having the ball.
The Bulls. Well, they did with Kobe.
Okay. Well, my point.
Yeah.
They did it with Jordan. They did it with Kobe.
Really tough
if you put me or you back, it can't run the triangle.
Right.
Triangle's not very good.
Right.
So when you have the best player, you let him go out there and be creative. And I think that's where Andy Reid, his creativity matches Mahomes, and that's why it's like
perfect fit. That's why they moved up to get Mahomes in the draft, that's and right. Ironically, they traded with Buffalo to get him. So I bet you Buffalo regrets that. They also moved up with Buffalo to get Worthy, which is crazy. Like Buffalo's giving them all Buffalo needs to stop trading with them. Like you're giving your enemy all the I mean, stop trading with them. And
what do you think Andy Reid does? Who's Buffalo taking this year? We'll just trade with them.
And then the last piece of this, as far as the game goes, we've talked about the positions, we talked about the coaching, special teams. When I was trying to figure out who I was going to pick for this game, honestly, it came down to coaching and special teams, and I'm not going to tell you who I picked yet. We'll wait on that, but that's what it came down.
How much did refereeing factor into this? How much did favor factor in this? Because I think that's been the storyline that we haven't even talked about going into this game, is that you can't beat Mahomes and the officials. You can't. Everybody's replaying every game that they've ever won and going back and pinpointing the holding call, the pass interference, the roughing the passer out of bounds, the flops that Mahomes takes that he gets the calls for. All right? I mean, everybody that is not a Kansas City fan is going back and saying you can't beat the refs.
Well, here's what I think on that. I do think that it's uncanny how many calls have went in Kansas City's way, not just in the playoffs, but in regular season. This year, I could give you examples that people want to say it's a conspiracy and all those things. I don't buy into that. Our good buddy Mike Conrad is all about conspiracy. He thinks it's conspiracy. He texts you and I 16 videos a day of how it's a conspiracy. I don't buy into that shit.
He's using his stats that he's compiled to make an argument, which he has a valid argument with.
That's what I would say. It is uncanny. I don't think the referees, or the league are dictating that. I just think referees make bad calls. I also do think the best player in any sport tends to get favoritism, whether it be Michael Jordan, it always has been that way.
That's the old adage is that in order to beat the champ, you have to do what? You have to knock him out. Because you're not going to win a decision against the champ. There's many fights that we've seen that, the champ goes out there and clearly gets outboxed by somebody, but doesn't win the favor because he's the champ. And what do we say about the sport? It's fixed.
Yeah.
Well, same thing applies here.
But boxing is a whole different ballgame when it comes to fixing it. Like for anyone to think
we have objective referees that are supposed to be objective on the side, watching the game, very similar to what officials are supposed to be objective, watching a game that make decisions and outcomes for the game.
And they make mistakes and they show they do show favoritism. I do think, look, Patrick Mahomes, we were Cam Newton guys. We saw every game he played. Cam, they would hit him in the head with a freaking hammer and they wouldn't call it. So Mahomes, you fucking fart on them and they're throwing a flag. So it is uncanny how many calls. I just don't buy into that it's on purpose or anything. And to get to my point with the referee in the Super Bowl, I did think about that, but what I went back to is the Buffalo game against Kansas City, there's a couple big calls in there that, again, the conspiracy theorists are pointing out. I do think it was a first down by Josh Allen on that sneak. They didn't give it to him.
Are those big, impactful? They're
huge.
When everything is equal and the game is equal, the quarterback play is equal, everybody's playing their best, and you don't get the first down and it's a turnover.
It's huge.
It's a game-changing momentum play.
I just
when you catch the ball on the 3-yard line and the ball hits the ground and nobody has possession of it, and you give them the catch, and you say that's
there were two huge.
Those are huge calls.
And so
versus fourth down and punting.
Yeah, and I'm not debating at all that those calls are wrong. I'm just saying I don't think they sit in a little room before a game with their cigars and their little earpieces in, and they're talking to the dude and they're figuring out.
Then why do they always get them?
Listen, throughout history, the best team. We used this example before. We're Duke fans. We hate Carolina. By the way, Duke, good job this weekend dismantling that team. That I didn't see that coming.
There's just two different times.
But still, we know that as a Duke fan, we always think Carolina gets the calls. They think Duke gets the calls, and the reason that both those think them is because they do get calls. The best teams normally do get the calls. I just think in this game, when the world is watching. And all that
watching,
but not like this. This is the most viewed game.
Last year it happened.
I don't think the Super Bowl last year.
I'll give you an example last year. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you an example last year for the offensive line in particular. Right?
You're going to go to
Kansas City led the league in holds from an offensive line perspective and standpoint, and as they got calls, they held more than any other team during the regular season. In the playoffs, you know how many holding calls they had? Zero. You don't go from leading the league to zero when the pressure is the greatest, when the stage is the biggest, and when you have all the eyes are watching. The impact of that it's immeasurable.
But
you can't measure that.
You don't think that happened because these referees are legitimately walking on the field?
No, because they're calling them on the other team.
Right. My point is they're not walking out there with a mindset of, okay, we're going to make sure Kansas City wins this game one way or the other. Because that's what the conspiracy is. And to me, that's not happening. Are they getting some favoritism? 100%. I could show you plays where Mahomes barely gets touched going out of bounds and they call a penalty, and Lamar Jackson gets creamed and thrown into the freaking 10th row and gets nothing. So your argument is legitimate from the standpoint that they get
I'm not
calls.
willing to say.
I don't think it's going to be a part
I'm
of
not willing to say that these referees are in bed with Vegas and the bookies, right? And the mafia and the mob.
Right.
I'm not willing to say that. But I also am going to say there's a lot of smoke. There's a lot of smoke.
Listen, and that's why I said it's uncanny how many calls they get.
When there's smoke, there's usually fire. Let's think about any other multi-billion-dollar business, right? Is there corruption? Is there corruption in any
you can have corruption anywhere, I guess. But
is there more corruption in multi-billion-dollar businesses that, you have the ability to control, whether it's trading, insider trading, whatever it might. They're arresting people all the time.
Well, let me simplify it then. Let me ask you this then. As a prop, let's say there's a prop that says, will the referees or one call play a pivotal point in the Super Bowl? That's even money bet.
That's
because if you think there's conspiracy, if you think the referees are going to help Kansas City win and that they have done that so many times,
that's a subjective
to me. Well, but I mean, would you bet that as much as you think it's going to happen?
What might be impactful for me might not be impactful for somebody else.
The two plays that
so it could be different.
The two plays that you just named in the Buffalo Kansas City game, I would call pivotal.
Well, but I understand that. Will Kansas City have more of them? Yes.
You think Kansas City?
Yes.
You think the referee?
Because it's why would that change? If we just talked about if they're the better team, you make your own luck.
And listen, against the Texans, there were a couple calls that were
the roughing the passer pivotal. And Mahomes going out of bounds and sliding and nobody hitting him and getting a 50. That's turnovers. You go from a fourth down to punting the ball to a first down where you score a touchdown. Right?
No,
that's a 14-point swing.
Those are pivotal. So you think that in this Super Bowl that
yes,
you think there'll be calls?
Yes. Why would I change? Because it's always been that way. It's been that way. 17 games that they've played, they've always got the more favorable calls in the impactful situations. The penalties are going to be similar. You're going to have 5 penalties for Kansas City. You might have 6. You might even have less. Let's say you have 10 penalties for Kansas City. You only have 8 for Philadelphia.
Yeah, the number of them don't count. It's just when they call them and what they are.
The 8 penalties for Philadelphia, might be a holding call here, holding call. The 4 penalties for Kansas City are going to be game-changing plays where you get a first down that turns into a touchdown.
Well, I'll tell you this. If the referees do play a pivotal role in this Super Bowl and because of that Philadelphia loses, it's going to be nuts.
And let me say this too. It's not and sometimes, guys, it's not the call that happens. It's not just the call. It's the calls that don't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we measure that?
Same way. I mean, you mentioned the call where Xavier Worthy caught that ball and it clearly hit the ground.
How do you measure a call? How do you measure a call that doesn't happen?
Well, that would be one.
No. This would be one. One would be where I tackle you and as you're on your way to the quarterback and that doesn't get called.
That'd be the same way as somebody catching the ball and hitting the ground, they giving them the call. I mean, that you can't measure that, but that just gave them a first down.
No, you can go back and look and say you can visually see that, right? There's no call, right? The challenge you can't challenge a holding call,
right?
I can't challenge the calls that happen within a game where I'm tugging on a receiver, and that's not called. Right. And I change or I turn his shoulder.
But those happen in every game.
I understand that. But they seem to happen more in Kansas City's favor, where it's not just the calls, it's the no calls that they get, where they're holding TJ Watt on the edge, or they're holding Von Miller, or they're holding a defensive end and they tackle him and don't get a call. It goes back to the point I was making earlier with the offensive line not having any holding calls. Right. I can tackle a defensive guy. He busts through. I go tackle and trip him up and get his ankles, where normally that's a 10-yard holding call or a tripping penalty, right? No call, no flag. How do I measure that? Right.
Well,
Kansas City seems to also get the favor in all of those as well.
Well, like I said, it is uncanny. A lot of the calls that they get or don't get. I don't buy the conspiracy thing. I do just think a lot of times the best teams and the best players get the calls. And I think we talked about this last podcast. You and I just haven't been lucky enough to be fans of the good teams. We've had the Panthers who have not been very good. The Hornets, we're lucky with Duke.
We always get the short end of the stick for sure with that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the Hornet games going back and forth. But we've got Steve Merril coming on next from Pro Sports Info, great handicapper, and we'll see what his thoughts are too on how the officiating may affect certain props or the game in particular. But he's going to come on next. We'll be right back on Suit Up Sports.
It's time to suit up. Here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome back to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout along with Frank Garcia. And now we're going to go to our guest line and bring on Steve Merril from Pro Sports Info. Steve, how you doing?
Doing well, guys. Great to be here.
Thank you, man. You're busy this week, I'm sure, getting ready for the Super Bowl. How many of these kind of shows will you do this week, probably?
Well, it's Monday here, so you guys get me early before I'm worn out. I'm still fresh. Yeah, no, it is kind of weird because like last week's the quiet before the storm. It really is. It was the first Saturday and Sunday without any meaningful football games, because we did have the Senior Bowl on Saturday, and how crazy that line was 2.5, and they win by 3. The over-under had gone 42 down to 40, and it lands 22-19, 41. So
wow,
I don't mess around with that stuff. I don't really look at the Senior Bowl or the All-Star games, but even that line was sharp. They did have a line on the Pro Bowl Sunday, which I don't mess with anymore because it's flag football.
Right.
The NFC somehow was a 2.5-point favorite, and they won easy, I saw. So I guess that money was sharp. The over-under was 94. When I had the TV on, it was over that already in the early third quarter. So they missed that one a little bit. But all jokes aside, there was no real football, but the odds were pretty sharp still on what they did have last weekend.
Have they stopped handicapping the Pro Bowl? Because I saw the numbers yesterday. It was like 170 points scored in that game.
The over-under was 94, I believe, during the week, a bettable line.
Yeah, and the winning
they
team,
obviously were a little off on that one. But the NFC, I believe, won by double digits, and they were a 2.5-point favorite. So they saw some edge there. I mean, you can look. I've always said you can mathematically put odds on anything, right? And if it truly is a coin flip, it should have been pick 'em. So for some reason they saw an edge with the NFC, and they saw it with the Senior Bowl team that won by 3 was a 2.5-point favorite, the North or whoever it was.
Yeah.
Back in the day, Frank, like you'll actually enjoy this. Like I did used to find edges 20 years ago in the Pro Bowl. We had a run like in 05, 06, 07. I think it was the AFC, and they'd be 2.5, 3-point favorites. And Peyton Manning was there, and there was just a substantial quarterback edge at times when the teams usually took it serious. We don't get that anymore. Back in the day with the NBA All-Star game, the same thing, but now they've switched all that up, and we don't get any kind of effort. One of the stories I always tell about 15 years ago when they started the rookie-sophomore game in the NBA on Friday nights, that was one of the best bets in sports, was to play that second-year squad. And for 2 or 3 years, they won by 20-some points, and the line was 4, 5, 6, and then they catch on. It's like anything, once it becomes obvious the value's not there anymore. And I don't know how they set 94 for the Pro Bowl. I don't watch these flag football games, but obviously they've had a couple of them, and I guess not sure why yesterday was so much higher scoring, but it apparently was.
Well, you mentioned something a little while ago, talking about the 1-point spread. And, it's interesting. I said the same thing. I said, what value do you get making a bet in a Super Bowl in a game of this magnitude when the only team is up by 1 point? When you look at, why not just make it a pick 'em? And what value do you get with that 1 point?
Hundreds of millions of dollars are moving, right? And the sharp bettors dictate games in general. Now, I will say this is the one sporting event of the year in which sharp money might not dictate where the line moves, because the public will come in so heavy this coming Saturday and Sunday that they can somewhat offset sharp money. But on a regular game, especially in basketball or baseball, smaller sports, you can get 80% of the bets on one side, but if the sharps are on the other side, they're going to still move the line that way because they just bet so much more money. NFL, maybe not as much because you do get a lot of casual weekend bettors. But yeah, every half point matters, especially to sharp bettors, because just look at the money line on this game, and that'll put it in perspective. Right now the Kansas City Chiefs are a pretty solid 1.5-point favorite. We'll see if that moves to 1 or to 2 this weekend, depending on where the public comes in. But right now is a 1.5-point favorite. Kansas City is about -125, -130. Take back +110. So that's about a 53 to 54% chance that they win the game straight up. So that extra 1.5 is about a 3 to 4% difference on who wins the game. So if you had the game at pick 'em, that would be -110, and you get flooded with Kansas City money because the true odds should be -120, -130.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were discussing earlier. Like a lot of times in a game like this where it's really, you can break the game down by position or whatever, and it's about as closely matched as a game, as we've seen. And then when you add in, the best quarterback in the league with Mahomes, coach with Reed, we were talking about with 1 point, and normally you could go with the underdog just because of the better odds. But in a game like this, you really are probably better off picking the team you just think's going to win the game, because there's really no value taking Philly on the money line, right?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I mean, look, there's never a time in my life where I've played a team at +1.5, hoping they're going to lose by 1. I mean, I'm just not playing games where I think the line's off by half a point. And I will say, big picture in the NFL in general, regular season, postseason, for 20, 30 years now that I've followed it, the point spread normally does not matter in competitively priced games. In fact, when the line is a touchdown or less, 84% of the time, including this season, I think it was exactly 84%. If you pick the straight up winner, you're going to cover the spread. So what that means is the majority of the time in a 7-point or less game, when the underdog covers, they win the game outright. The spread doesn't even matter. So you definitely want to look at money lines with underdogs at plus money. And that's another reason I don't recommend playing favorites on the money line, because you're better off just laying the price and the point spread, because it generally does not come into play. And the same holds up in the NBA and other sports as well.
Yeah.
You should never be playing an underdog that you don't think can win the game straight up, unless it's a big double-digit dog. Then that's maybe a slightly different handicap.
Let me ask you this, Steve, before we get into the game too, but where do you stand on, because there's all kinds of different, opinions on it and about buying hooks. So I'm a kind of guy, and Frank and I argue about this all the time. I buy the hook all the damn time because it just pisses me off.
Shouldn't be betting the game if you have to buy the hook.
If I lose the game, by a half point, it just pisses me off. So I do it just for my own mental stability. Frank sits here and he goes, "Oh, you're wasting money. You shouldn't bet the game if you're buying half points." But where do you stand on that?
Frank is right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're where he got it from.
This one, I mean, I could explain this in so many different ways to show you why. First of all, in modern sports betting, now that it's legal in the majority of states, you can have 5 or 10 different sports books, and you will get that half point for free just by spreading your bankroll around to 5 or 10 accounts. And that's just, I don't want to say lazy, but if you don't do it, it's lazy, right? It's the same. Right. The example I use is, if it's funny, guys, I did a money management article 30 years ago when I started in 1996. And I said, shopping for line value is one of the key three key things to winning. It's more important than picking the team, because you could theoretically get a half point on every game by shopping around and don't even have to pick the right side. Just flip a coin. You're going to come out ahead in the long run by having line value. But in that article, I mentioned that people, will shop around to save $50, $100 on a new TV or VCR. I've had to update that over the years, obviously, because we're not buying VCRs anymore. But, you go to buy a computer, someone's shopping around on Amazon or anywhere else to get the best $50 discount, right? It amazes me that people don't do that with sports betting when they're betting hundreds of dollars. They'll have just all their money out of laziness in 1 or 2 accounts. And that half point is available. Like right now, wagertalk.com has a free live odds screen where I do stuff every day. And you can check the 5 or 6 sports books. And I'll pull up the Super Bowl right now. It's 1 at the Superbook in Vegas. It's 1.5 at Circa. There's even some almost 2 starting to show off shores in some spots. So you can almost get anywhere from 1 to 2 depending on where you play the Super Bowl or when you play it. You don't need to pay extra for that half a point. And then on top of that, as we just discussed, the line normally does not matter, right? So you're paying extra juice for a half point that's not going to matter. And I'll take it a step further. If it really bothers you to lose by half a point, then why not buy 2 points? Why not buy 3 points? Hell, let's just buy 7 points on every game so we don't lose by less than a touchdown, right? And of course, you don't do that, and you wouldn't do that. And the reason is because, well, Steve, that gets too expensive, right? That's becoming minus 300, minus 400. The half points, the sports books aren't letting you buy a half point at a discount, right? They wouldn't be doing it otherwise. So you're overpaying for it. But the bigger thing is you can normally get it for free by just having more outs.
Yeah, Steve, you talk about key lines all the time, the 3s, the 7s, the 10s, those numbers. And obviously that may not factor into this game, but just explain your reasoning and rationale with those, because I always love to hear that explanation.
Yeah, basketball is straightforward, right? There's really no key numbers because there's hundreds of points scored. So every half a point in basketball is worth maybe like 2% of the line. So there again, if you're able to shop around in like an NBA or college hoops game and get an extra half point better on every bet you make, you're going to have like an extra 2% win percentage on every play all season. That's how powerful it is. Football, there's key numbers because of scoring. Scoring's not 1 or 2, 3 points at a time like in basketball. It's 3s and 7s. And even with the 2-point conversion now in the NFL, it hasn't really changed key numbers, because what happens is teams can get back to the key numbers now by going for 2. And then when they don't, they double up and they go for 2 again, because they're always trying to get back to 3 and 7, which are the granddaddy key numbers. And so like 1, 2, they're somewhat dead numbers, but there's still about a 1 to 2% chance it could land on either. So that's why the line's not pick 'em. They got to make it 1.5 to get balanced action. But yeah, as you know, Frank, I mean, 3 is the key number. There's about a 9 to 10% chance a favorite's going to win by exactly 3. There's about an 18% chance one of these teams win by exactly 3. That's how critical that number would be. 7 is up there as well. Favorites win by 7 about 5% of the time. Now, I will say teasers are normally sucker bets in football. That's when you can move the line 6 points. The only time it's an advantage play is in the NFL, where you can cover both 3 and 7 by moving it from 1.5 up to 7.5 or 7.5 down to 1.5. This is an excellent teaser play on the Eagles, plus 1.5 up to 7.5. The problem, the catch,
what do you
do
bet it
another
with?
game, and there's no other football games. We should have done the Senior Bowl last Saturday when it was plus 2.5, but we missed that one.
Well, let me ask you this: and we'll dive into the game. So with the teaser and I do a lot of teasers in the cases you're talking about right there. What about the over under?
Right.
Like 49.5, at least it was early. I don't know what you have at right now, but somewhere in that, you could tease it down, or up. I tend to think the game's going to be a higher scoring game. I just think both these offenses are going to be tough to stop. But regardless, with the over under, would you tease that, or is that something that you would stay away from?
Well, I mean, it's the only other option you have. In general, teasing over-unders is not an advantage play because you're not covered enough key numbers. Now, there are key numbers with totals. Back when Frank was playing, 37 was very prominent when it was lower scoring. We don't see those as much anymore. 41 is still a very key total. We have started to see more 41s now because games have become a little bit more lower scoring the last couple of years. But in this range, 51 is the key number. There's about a 3 to 4% chance a game can land on 51. And once again, this isn't magic. It's just basic math, right? 27-24, a very likely outcome. 31-20, 41-10. A lot of things get you there. 49 is where it's currently standing. As I check the Wager Talk live odds screen, we'll see 48.5s, 49. 49 is a dead number. 50 is a dead number. Probably less than 1% it lands on either. 48, 47, maybe a couple percent chance. Those are somewhat key numbers. The problem, though, with the teaser in this price range is whether you're going over or under, you're just not covering enough key numbers. Going from 49 up to 55, you're only getting like 51 in play. It's just not worth it.
Right.
Teasing down to 43 to go over maybe is a little bit better. That would be my preference because you're getting 44, 45, 47, 48. So I think Eagles plus 7.5 over 43 would be the only like borderline teaser you can make a recommendation on. But once again, totals aren't the option to go, but we have no other choice because there's no other games.
Right.
Steve, you've been doing this a long time. And I know that when you're talking about billions of dollars being wagered on this sport and the amount of money that is passed by, each and every week, but this game in particular, the storyline going into the game is the refs, the impact and the influence on the refs. And I talk about it's not always the calls that you make, it's sometimes the calls that you don't make. And, the 17-0 and all the things that kind of add up in Kansas City's favor. When you look at it on paper, the Eagles are a better team. But how do you bet against Mahomes, when you think that potentially they might have, some bias with those referees in their pocket?
Frank, I joke about this all the time when I do my NBA playoff videos over on Wager Talk TV. I do a lot of NBA stuff during the year. And, I've always talked about the conspiracy with like guys like Scott Foster and Tony Brothers, the two extenders, when a series is 5 or 6 games. And I've joked about it for so long that I'm starting to kind of believe it a little. And I'm almost thinking maybe I have subconsciously been serious about it. And I didn't make much of the Kansas City stuff to the last couple of games. And look,
that's right.
We're 8-1 over the past month in the NFL. I went, I think, 5 or 6-1 in the playoffs so far. Eagles were one of the best plays I've seen all season because not my Washington Commanders were not making the Super Bowl this season. But I did like the Bills. That's the only game I've missed in the entire postseason. So I was a little surly with some of those spots the other Sunday. and it did, guys, get me thinking, is there something to it? Now, whether it's intentional is a whole different subject. And I do think superstars, as you guys know, get calls. Jordan gets them. LeBron gets them, right?
So we talked about
Mahomes is going to get them as well. But you do worry about that. And here again, you're talking about a basic pick-em situation. And I agree with exactly what you said, Frank. I think the Eagles on paper probably are the better team this year. This is a rematch from 2 years ago. I actually watched the Super Bowl 57 replay last night to do some research. The Eagles were up by 10 at the half. Really were controlling that game. And they're probably better this year. Their defense is better this year, definitely better than last year.
Yep.
So, and the Chiefs have won their games by like an average of like less than 4 points a game this season, despite only losing one real game all year.
Right.
But you're fading Andy Reid off a bye week, the best coach in history off a bye. Great quarterback, doesn't make mistakes. Maybe the NFL narrative behind him, the Taylor Swift factor. I mean, we had that last year. We talked about it, but it's like there are some reasons to be concerned playing against Kansas City in a straight up win situation.
I asked Frank this question earlier because we were debating the same thing that you just said. And I said to Frank, if there was a prop bet that said you could bet that the officiating call would be a pivotal point of who wins this game or loses this game, and it was even odds, would you say yes or no? it's a tough decision because of what you just said. I'm with you. I don't buy the conspiracy stuff. However, it is uncanny that when Kansas City plays, there's a lot of calls that tend to go their way, and they happen to be pivotal calls. They're like big calls in the game.
And you know, it's the old saying, like, you create your own luck, and that's another thing with sports betting. I've always had this discussion with people. You have a bad beat. No one ever talks about the good beats because on every other side of a bad beat, somebody won the bet with luck, right? So you're going to win it. It's going to even out. And in the short term, it won't even out. You might even have seasons where it doesn't even out. But in the long, I've been doing this almost 30 years now. It's evened out. You learn to roll with the punches. What you want to try to do is win 60 to 70% of your bets where you have an edge and where randomness just doesn't come into the factor. And I do think people create their own luck in life. And Kansas City is a quality team. They're a well-coached team. They got a great quarterback who doesn't make mistakes. So you can make the argument you're going to have more luck in that situation. But Philly should be at the same role, right? I mean, Jalen Hurts doesn't make a lot of mistakes either. Yeah. So we'll see if that evens out. One thing I will say, what's really interesting about Kansas City, the point spread seems so mystical to everybody in all sports, but it really isn't. All it is margin of victory with schedule strength factored in. And they might adjust it a little bit based on trying to get balanced action, between the public and the sharps. But the sharps are going to correct a line that's off mathematically. So the point spread, especially nowadays, is pretty much math-based. It's margin of victory with schedule strength. And in the NFL, well, we're almost 20 games in for each team. The schedule strength is pretty equal for all these teams at this point. And once again, you look at Kansas City. Now, granted, this does include the Denver game, which really skewed the stats because they didn't play anybody that got blown out. But on the season, the Kansas City Chiefs, 17-2, have outscored their opponents by about 3.5 points a game. So once again, it's probably about 5 if you take the Denver game out. You look at the Eagles this season; they've outscored their opponents by 10.5 points a game. I mean, it's crazy if you look at that. Yet they're the underdog. So you really can make an argument Philly should be favored in this game. And even if you're worried about the conspiracy stuff, you're still maybe getting several points in line value even with that factored in.
Right.
Steve, some of your other prop bets. I mean, I know the game is, one of the things that we're going to focus on, talk about that. But I think I mentioned to you if I'm a gambler and I know the singer of the national anthem, for example, and my buddy over here probably does. He was in music, country music forever, and he knew all these people. But if you know this singer and you've seen them rehearse and you know that it's going to be 2 minutes and 10 seconds, why wouldn't you just put your entire savings on the over of the national anthem?
Well, first of all, you're not going to make much because if your entire savings is $500, then you've got bigger problems in life because that's all you're going to be able to get down on it, right? Keep in mind, as you know, Frank, I mean, we've talked about it before. These prop bets, first of all, are not available in Nevada. The Gaming Commission won't allow like the national anthem props because we have had controversy over the years. I think it was Kelly Clarkson about 10, 15 years ago. And I've handicapped these for years. I love the novelty props. There's some inside information on the Gatorade color, by the way. We can get to that in a little bit, boys. But it's the same thing with the national anthem. There's been controversy. I think Kelly Clarkson was the one that repeated the word brave back in like 07 or 08. I'd have to look it up. And that extended it like 5 or 10 seconds. So now you'll notice that the sharp offshore, and by the way, these are the offshore books, the international books in the Caribbean and in England and whatnot, because I don't think any states allowed either with like FanDuel or DraftKings, because there is a lot of uncertainty how you grade these, but they'll say the clock starts when they say, oh, and then it ends on the first saying of brave, so if they extend it 5 times or brave, they don't, but it is uncanny how close it gets to the number. And you're right, there are 5 or 10 or 20 people that are going to know probably the time of the national anthem. And once again, it's an efficient betting market, right? And a sports book is willing to let that person hit them for the $500 limit or the $100 limit. And then guess what? They're going to move the odds and they're going to get balanced action still because it's a market, right? It's a two-way market. But that's exactly why you can't bet 10 or 20 or 50,000, nor would a sports book allow you, because anybody coming in with that kind of action knows something and the sports book doesn't.
Yeah, when I ran country radio stations and sports radio stations, and I've had several friends of mine sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl, and I've known their crew of management and record label, whoever that accompany them to these deals. And I've always thought to myself, man, they're going to time they're going to go to the rehearsal, and they're going to know exactly how long it's going to take, and it could change, give or take here or there. But I never asked the question because I didn't want to put anybody in a bad situation. But damn it, I was close on many of occasions.
And you could have been $500 richer.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And get arrested and
that's exactly the point. Hey, but on a serious note, though, I mean, Jonte Porter, banned from the NBA for life. Someone told me the other day he's facing like 20 years in jail, which that seems a little extreme to me. But he was a minimum wage guy in the NBA, so it still didn't make sense to try to risk your career even at $500,000. But this, Rozier, he's got a $96 million contract right now, and there's talks with him. It makes no sense because you got to put NBA prop bets are the same way. Like you can't get more down than like $500 or $1,000.
Right.
The risk reward is so bad for anyone to do something on these. But that's the thing. These novelty bets in the Super Bowl aren't available at most like legal sports books in Nevada. They're not even around the U.S. I don't think like any of the states are allowing them. It's more offshore. And to be honest, it's a marketing gimmick for those sports books because they're coming on shows like this. And we're talking about them, right? It's just a marketing gimmick. And even if they get hit by somebody that knows something, which probably happens, it's a marketing cost, right? It's a loss leader to get people. And keep in mind, even if you wanted to make those bets back in the day, you would have had to open an account where you probably didn't have one, make a deposit. And they're more than willing to give you that little bonus on that one bet because you're going to probably bet it elsewhere over the course of the season. So lots of variables that play on it.
What props, if any, I'm sure you have several, but that really stand out to you that you think are, safe, the safer bet, higher value props?
Well, I'll start with a disclaimer. And, Frank's heard me say this over the years as well when we did shows. The Super Bowl is a one-off event. Money management's always important, but people really go haywire because it's the last football game of the season. We have hundreds of basketball games every week where I see a ton of value. Baseball is a couple months away. In fact, last year at wagertalk.com, my clients doubled their bankroll in baseball alone. We went over 100 units. So, I mean, it's like,
wow,
the Super Bowl is fun, right? But it's one sporting event. Like, if you're really serious about making money, treating it as an investment, it's the other sports we're looking at. With that said, though, there's still a lot of value with these props because the one edge you have as a sports bettor, and this isn't just the Super Bowl, it's every day with 100 basketball games, is that they have to put a number up on every prop, on every basketball game. You could pick your spots and play one or two games. Like, I average maybe 1 to 3 best bets a day on when there's 100 games on the board. And it's the same with these props. Most of them, there probably is not value. And if there is, the sharp money's already corrected it before the public even gets to the window. I will say this, though. You got to be careful not to overexpose your bankroll because the way you handicap these are going to be correlated to how you think the game is going to play out. If you think it's a high-scoring game, you're going to like more over props probably for yardage, receptions. If you have a preferred side, you're going to like them better. I try to look for matchup edges. I talked about earlier how we do have a Super Bowl rematch from just 2 years ago, and it's pretty much the same characters, a couple new pieces in there. So I think we can definitely look at that Super Bowl 57 game book and dig into that, see how it played out. That was an extremely high-scoring game. Don't forget the Eagles were up by 10 in that game. There was a fumble return for touchdown by Kansas City. They almost had a second one that was ruled a no catch that they ran back. I think the game will play out like that. It could be a little higher scoring than people expect. I will say with the props, though, in general, you're not going to find a lot of value with the over props on big name guys because there's an inflation there because the public is almost always playing over props. And it makes sense, right? You want to root for Mahomes to have a rushing touchdown. You want to root for guys to have catches. It's not fun to play the under. So if you like over props, you want to play them sooner than later. They're going to be higher by next weekend. I think the over values are more with the lesser tier guys and some of the second tier players maybe that aren't the primetime guys that can sneak in and have a big game.
My final question, I know you got to run, Steve. I appreciate your time as always, but we talked about that game 2 years ago, and the one difference to me, the X factor is going to be Saquon Barkley. Everybody's talking about the refs, everybody's talking about the quarterbacks and the coaches. I think he's probably the one guy to me that is arguably the MVP. That will be the biggest X factor in this game and the biggest difference for these two teams.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, Frank. I mean, we're talking about how like the Eagles could have easily won that game 2 years ago. They led by double digits, and now they've got the best running back in football, which they didn't have in that game. I'll give you an X factor, no pun intended. X factor on the other side is Xavier Worthy, fastest man in the NFL in history. But there again, I was disappointed. The odds makers did a really good job pricing him. I did a show on Wager Talk TV earlier today. I gave out a free prop on Worthy over 5.5 receptions plus 115. Would have liked that at 5 or less. But I still think at plus money, it's the only way to play. If they're going to look to get him the ball, right? You got to get your playmaker the ball. And that's another guy that did not play in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So I agree with you. Barkley on the Eagles side, I think Worthy on the Chiefs side are the two big difference. And another thing I'll point out about Worthy, even though I'm willing to pay a little bit of a premium, a lot of these props are based on overall season stats, a little bit of recency, bias factored in. But he was a true rookie. In his first 4 games, he had 4 targets or less, 3 receptions or less, 2 and 3 of them, I think. And then all of a sudden, they threw to him 22 times the next 3 games after that. And he fast forward to the last 3 games of the regular season. He sat out the Denver game, but he had 31 targets in his last 3 regular season games and had 21 receptions. Wow. And then you look at the playoffs, 13 targets, 11 receptions. But that means basically they're getting him the ball in high percentage situations. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, give him a little 1-yard dump pass, let him run with it. So I think Worthy props over. I know he's priced a little higher than you would expect, but I expect him to be a little bit of an X factor as well.
Before we let you go, any other props or game thoughts you got to leave our listeners? And as you see, I'm taking notes over here too, so I can get these in before the odds go up.
And how do we get a hold of you after you're done?
Yeah, I'm going to have my prop report up later this week at wagertalk.com. Steve Merril, wagertalk.com. You can find me there. I also do a lot of free play videos on Wager Talk TV right on YouTube. You can subscribe to Wager Talk TV. And I will have some free play prop videos. I did that Worthy prop on Monday, posted that for everyone here. Going to have some more later this week. Also going to have my Fade the Public video for the Super Bowl. I do that every week during the NFL, in which we talk about the most public sides. I'm going to have the side and total where the public is on this game heading into the weekend. Also more prop info and some public props. And one thing that's interesting about props, guys, is that, the sharps are always looking to take plus money normally. And the Super Bowl is the one time they're actually willing to lay like minus 300, minus 400, because the public wants the plus money. It's kind of opposite in big games. All of a sudden, the public is on underdogs, right? They're on plus money. Yeah. And don't be afraid to play like the no overtime. I know we saw it last year, right? Or the no safety. We saw that for a few years in a row about 10 years ago, but that normally doesn't happen. And there's actually a slight mathematical edge normally with the minus 700, the minus 800. It's going to sting a little when it happens, but if you play that consistently every year, you've made money.
Right. Yeah, I saw somebody talking the other day about a prop of somebody else with a that attempts a throw besides Hurts or Mahomes, and they say in big games, you see a lot of trickeration. But I saw some people were getting on that too.
Well, that's interesting because that's a prop I have used over the years, and it's always 2.5 plus money. And what you look at props like that too is it's a 100% certainty that you're going to have 2, correct? So all you need is somebody. So then you start looking, is it possible? And you do see more of that. Once again, you got to kind of throw the regular season stats out, especially with a guy like Andy Reid, who's very conservative. He's going to change things up a little bit in the Super Bowl. Back in Super Bowl 57, too, they had a guy, I forget his name, I think it was Scott, there was the running back for Kansas City when I was watching the replay last night, had his only touchdown of the season in the Super Bowl, right? So it's like some weird things like that happen. And that's another reason, as I said earlier, a lot of these big name guys like Barkley, even Worthy, unfortunately, are kind of priced to perfection, and you're not going to find a lot of value. Those second tier guys are where you want to look for some overs, so maybe anytime touchdowns, and you can play several of them and get some big plus money prices. And that's a fun way. Hey, look, the Super Bowl should be fun. There's nothing wrong with having a fun bankroll and sprinkling a little on a lot of different plays and hope to hit it. Once again, just don't go crazy. Keep your big bankroll intact for basketball and baseball because that's the real money making.
Yep. Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Best in the business.
Yeah, and we'll have you on again during basketball and baseball. I'm a huge baseball guy too, so and I know you do a great job with that. Again, guys, you can find them at wagertalk.com or Wager Talk TV. Steve, thanks for joining us on Suit Up Sports. We'll get back with you hopefully the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, guys, we'll do a little March Madness in a month or so.
Sounds great, bud. Thanks.
Thank you.
Guys.
Okay.
You're listening to Suit Up Sports.
Suit Up Sports.
Here's your host, DJ The Suit Stout.
Welcome back to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ The Suit Stout, Frank Garcia, Big D over there producing the show, doing a good job. Thank you again to Steve Merril from wagertalk.com for joining us.
Best in the business. He's
great. And I love talking to handicappers because especially ones like that who really dive into the numbers, because that's not my style. Like I'm more of a casual guy that looks at the game. I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm not diving into the numbers like he is.
I mean, he's a super smart guy, and I could have sat there and picked his brain,
no doubt,
for another 20, 30 minutes if we were going to be disrespectful of his time. But it's always good to have a guy that's been doing it as long as he has and has as much success as what he's had, because if you like to wager, you like to bet, you like to gamble, he speaks your language for sure.
Yeah, and we'll be back with him. We'll have him on before March Madness. What the hell am I talking about? March Madness, and we'll be in Vegas for the first weekend of the March Madness tournament. So maybe even do a podcast over there and have Steve join us too. Now we want to go to something really important. And Frank,
the most important.
Yeah, the most important.
Arguably.
And Frank and I are going to give you our picks here shortly. But you heard us break down the game, and I think probably everyone now is in the same situation where we are, where it is just a tough game to pick. But what's not hard to pick is our Super Bowl party menu and festivities.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big deal because I know a lot of men out there listening, a lot of women out there listening, throw these parties or attend these parties. And as we have over the years, Frank didn't get to attend these parties, at least once when he was in the Super Bowl. And we're going to talk about that a little later. But I love throwing parties, as you know. I love having people to the house. I've got a group of a
great house for entertaining.
Yeah, and a lot of great friends. And so, we tend to be the ones that like to entertain. And for the Super Bowl, I was talking to my next door neighbor and good buddy Mike Kuhn, who and Matt Wilson, who been one of my best friends since I was 12 years old. And he loves to cook. I love to cook, and Mike cooks. And we were talking about, Mike wanted to say, man, let's cook a whole pig. Like, enough with the butts and the ribs. Let's get a whole.
Let's do it right.
So I called Frontier Meats out in Waxhaw and ordered an 80-pound pig.
Is it a suckling pig or is it a hog? A suckling pig is like the little baby ones that you see, that sit on the table with the apple
pig.
in their mouth. It's a.
I'm gonna put
a boar. Is it a boar or is it a pig?
Dude, I don't know. It's a damn pig with a
pork.
snout.
It's
gonna have great barbecue sandwiches, pork chops. Yeah, I don't know which one of those it is. All I know is it's the questions they ask me, and I cook all the time, so I know.
Have you ever done a pig?
I have never done a whole pig. That's why neither is Matt and neither has Mike.
So there's multiple ways to do this, and I'm not an expert, but I've seen it done. I have a bunch of Hawaiian friends that they do this for a luau.
Yep.
Right, and I'm going to tell you what, buddy. If you ever have an opportunity to dig a hole, put some lava coals on it, put some banana leaves over the top, and then put the pig on, put the lava, the banana leaves over the top of that, and then cover it with dirt. You're never going to find, and salt the thing to death.
Mm-hmm.
Put salt everywhere. You're never going to find a better tasting roast than that, or pig pork pulley.
Yeah, we talked about doing that, but by the end of the day, and also with me having four dogs.
It takes a whole. Yeah, the dogs.
I got
out there
4
digging
big
up the
dogs.
coals.
Yeah, that pig would be gone. He'd be killed twice.
Yeah.
But no, I have them splitting the rib cage so we can lay it flat and the head on it and all that stuff. And I'm looking forward to that. And then we always have baked beans, and I make really good baked beans. Mike Conrad, our buddy, he might do the baked beans this year, but we put ground beef and maybe some kielbasa in there.
Yeah, it's almost like chili beans, but they're baked.
Yeah, and they're great.
A little bit of everything.
Ketchup, mustard, and stuff like that. Mac and cheese.
You do a heck of a mac and cheese. I know that.
Yeah, we'll have that going, and
I'll make some dips too.
Dips and some of your sauces. Frank makes great salsa.
My salsa. I'm more of the Hispanic flavor. I'm going to bring the taquitos.
Yeah.
The 7-layer dip and the salsa that I make.
And your brother Jason, his garden is like freaking ridiculous. It's the size of most people's backyard.
That's right.
But I grow peppers. He grows tons of peppers. Mm-hmm. And tapines in particular.
The chili tapines is what we use.
You make for that sauce is delicious. And then I'm not a huge potato salad fan. I like the mustard base, as long as it's not too much, mayonnaise or mustard, whatever how you put it. I don't make potato salad, but my buddy Dennis Roach makes a great potato salad. Like I mean, it's my mother-in-law and Dennis. I will eat their potato salad every time, and so he's going to bring that, and then on down the list. We'll have so much stuff
Not
here.
counting the brownies and the cookies.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a sweet tooth like I do.
I do, unfortunately.
The cookie that everybody loves is the logo cookie, whether it's the Chiefs or whether it's going to be the Eagles. Yeah.
I think Braxton, your son,
he ate half of
damn near half of one last week. Krista came to me the next morning And she was like, we were talking about the party we had or whatever. And she was like, did you have any of that cookie? And I said, yeah, I think I took like a little piece of it. She goes, I think Braxton, I think he ate at least half of it. And then he told me he needed some fruit. So I gave him 2 bananas. And I was like, well, look at his father. I mean, look, the kid's stout. I mean, he's built like a, freight train. And, but yeah, those cookies. And I tell you, I was driving to meet you guys yesterday at the lodge. And while I was going past Harris Teeter to get to the lodge, they do it every year. The Girl Scouts had set up their home base right there on that turn. And I always stop and I always buy, 6 or 8 boxes.
Tag-alongs.
The
coconut cookies.
I love the peanut butter ones or whatever. And they were
tag-along.
They were just set. Yeah, those are my favorite.
You like those are the chocolate mint, the thin mint.
I like the thin mints. I put peanut butter on them.
On the thin mint.
Yeah, I take the thin mint and then I get a thing of peanut butter and I get a knife and
that's creative.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah,
and I keep them in the freezer. You got to keep the thin mints.
Yeah, that's true.
But the tag-alongs are my favorite. And yesterday I was gonna stop, but they were just setting up, so they weren't quite ready yet. And then when I was leaving later, they were gone. So they must have sold out quick.
Oh gosh.
And there's been guys at the lodge, by the way, where we hang out. I forget the guy's name, and he passed away, and rest in peace. But he was just a super, super nice older fella.
He'd buy the boatload.
He would buy all of them, and he would stick them in the lodge.
Yeah.
So you'd walk in there, and there'd just be boxes of these cookies up against the window that you could eat them or people would take them. But the guy would do it. Just these little girls are out there selling their cookies, and now job's done.
I mean, is there a bigger racket in all of businesses than what they sell to these kids? And Girl Scout cookies made me think about that. You get these cookies and they sell $2,500 worth of merchandise, and they go out there and they get a yo-yo for that. And that yo-yo probably cost me $200 because I had to buy 30% of what they were selling, since for a lap around a field. All right, you're on 10 laps, we're going to sponsor that for $10, and then next thing you know, you're $100 in, and all you get is a yo-yo.
Yeah, well, it's like those machines when you take your kids to the arcade or whatever.
Yeah.
And when we were kids, and you stick $100 worth of dollar bills in this machine trying to get something that you could go buy for $7.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. But the cookies are good, and so I always stop and buy them. But so I'm sure we'll have a bunch of those cookies here.
Perfect.
And then we get into the beverages, right? So I'm a bourbon collector. I'm a big bourbon guy. So my wife Kristen makes the best old fashions you've ever had. You've had them. And
are we doing old fashions?
We'll be doing smoked old fashions.
Smoked old.
Yeah, that's smoked.
You know what? I'm going to bring some then. I'm going to get some of that Eagle Rare that we have at our store.
Perfect. Bring it.
Eagle Rare.
Bring it. I love Eagle Rare. The best bourbon I've ever had, and I've tried the majority of them, including all the Pappies. The best one I've ever had was Eagle Rare 17.
Well,
and I had it in Nashville twice. I've never seen it again.
I think we might have an Eagle Rare
10-year.
10.
That's great too.
Yeah.
So we'll have the old fashions flowing, and then we've got buddies that drink gin that they'll make their things. It's crazy. You come into the party and it's you've got horseshoes, especially, by the way, the weather's going to be 72 degrees in Charlotte.
It's going to be beautiful.
So it's going to be unbelievable outside. So we'll have the horseshoe pitch rocking, the cornhole rocking.
You got me ready for the weekend already.
That's what I'm saying. Like the game, I don't like either team. I could care less really. I mean, my money will probably be where my allegiance goes for the most part. We're going
to do a box. The boxing, the bets.
We'll do squares. We'll do parlay cards like we usually do.
Yeah. These little prop bets that we have.
Prop bets and stuff like that. Yep. Exactly. And so it's a party, man. But we've got time before that. So anyone listening out there, you can always email Frank and I. I'm DJ at suitupsports.com, and Frank is Frank at suitupsports.com. And email us. We'd love to hear any suggestions and anything.
Some feedback.
What you guys do at your parties. I mean, you might add something to our menu this weekend if you hear this, and shoot us an email. But you can
midget strippers. No,
that's already coming. But we love to hear your opinions on that and what you're doing for your parties, and thoughts on the show, guests you want to see,
put a bad video
topics you want to see. So dude, I'm only like 5'10", bro. So like, it doesn't take a whole lot for a girl to be shorter.
I've always wondered, the digits, do they match?
Oh God Almighty! We should have Steve. Steve went to MIT. He's got all the mathematical.
He had the analytics on how big the feet are compared to the body.
But anyway, Yeah, give us your feedback. Again, I'm at dj@suitupsports.com. Frank is frank@suitupsports.com. We're also going to be expanding here pretty soon. We'll announce that here in the next probably week. You'll be able to get us in a couple other different ways.
We're exploding. We're going fast.
It's good. Yeah, we're excited about that. And so, yeah, we got a lot of things going on, but we'd always love to hear your opinions. We're also going to be taking on interns. So if you have a son or a daughter who is in college, and meet the criteria for their school, and for us, we're gonna be hiring interns, and we're gonna be looking for these interns to help cover not only their school where they attend, but also maybe their conference or things like that. It really depends on where they are.
You can use the interns for a lot of different ways too. I know you have a lot of things going on, but to help out, maybe get their foot in the door here with media,
Exactly.
don't go into an opportunity to if they want to go to broadcasting school or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
or you also have a marketing company as well that you're always looking for good help with, that you can log some hours in.
Exactly. So if you do have a kid in college who is interested, whether it be broadcasting, journalism, marketing, music, I mean, we do a lot of stuff with music festivals and things like that too. So again, you've got the emails are also on the bottom of the screen. But go-to wise, and we're doing the whole pig, right? So we're gonna have a lot of choices, whether it be just, normally we do a Boston butt or normally we do the ribs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're gonna have, a lot of different cuts and Matt Wilson is going to be the head chef for this thing. He's the one.
He's orchestrating it.
Oh yeah. Matt's the grill king. And he already made it very clear to us that he's making the sauce that we'll be, mopping this bad boy with. We're gonna,
what's great with you turned me on to this. It's just straight vinegar.
Well, when you smoke ribs and you take them off and you cut them up, if you just put some white vinegar on your cutting board,
yep,
and dip them in, it's delicious. It's
delicious.
Matter of fact, the guy that turned me on to that, one of my best buddies, Barry Skidmore, his brother David Skidmore, that's whose smoker we're actually borrowing, because the one I have isn't big enough for this 80-pound hog. Ooh. It's a hog, by the way, 85. That's how they call it, 80-pound hog. But David smokes things all, hogs and you name it.
Maybe he should orchestrate this.
Well, he's going to let us use a smoker, and we're definitely going to have a conference with him when we go pick it up. But Matt's going to run the show.
You'd hate to ruin an 80-pound pig.
We won't ruin it. I can guarantee you we won't ruin it. We may ruin a part or two of it, but we won't ruin the rest of it. And
I don't want to be beating pig's feet and pig ass.
No, you won't have to worry about that. And we'll be getting up. I think we'll start. I think we have to start cooking it like around midnight or 1 in the morning.
Oh yeah, so it's a 24-hour.
So we'll be out there partying, and we may even do a live podcast that day. We've been discussing maybe
that could be after dark.
Yeah,
podcast after dark.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows what's going to go on
We'll have
there.
a warning label on that one. But yeah, so hopefully you guys have a great time at your Super Bowl parties that you're throwing or attending. So Frank, let's finish up the show. Our first ever Super Bowl preview together. Who do you like? Give me your pick and why.
I'm going to sound like what is it, McAfee? Where I come off chanting one side and then give you the hook 'em horns on the other side. But it is really, really hard and difficult to bet against Mahomes. 17-0 in games decided by a score or less. And he's just been fantastic. Xavier Worthy, he's been a guy that's been getting, open a little bit more. He's an X factor. He has all the speed in the world, the fastest guy in the NFL. You got a better defense, and you got probably the best coach in the NFL. All that being said, I just feel like the Eagles are a better football team. I really do. And Saquon Barkley is going to be the biggest difference maker in this game. Jalen Hurts is going to run when necessary. He'll get the short yardage when necessary. A.J. Brown will have a couple of big plays with play action. And their defense is going to maul Patrick Mahomes. If the referees don't get involved, I think this is a 7-point game for the Eagles. Very similar to what we saw a couple of years ago, double-digit lead at halftime and, just not fall asleep in the second half, make the proper adjustments. And that's where you lean on Barkley to just take the reins home and win your first Super Bowl. I think Barkley and, Jalen Hurts win their first Super Bowl and, win Super Bowl 59.
Well, your breakdown is very similar to mine, because on paper, everyone agrees, me, you, as well as Steve Merril, that Philadelphia wins the paper battle, right? And it's not really that close. I mean, they win the majority of the position battles. I I think Jalen Hurts is one of the top 10, 12 quarterbacks in the league. Saquon's the best running back in the league. A.J. Brown, they got talent all over. Best offensive line, best defensive line. And so everything in my brain says take Philadelphia. However, when I look at Kansas City, you've got, as we said, the best player in the NFL, possibly could go down in history eventually as the best quarterback in the NFL. He's got some work to do, but he's on a pretty good track to get it. One of the best coaches ever in the NFL, one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. So for me, when I looked at all that, there was two things that kept coming back to me that I thought had the biggest separation as far as what could make a difference. And the first thing was coaching. And I know that Eagles fans are going to go, what are you talking about? Sirianni's record right now is one of the best ever in the history of the NFL for how many games he's coached. And this will be his second Super Bowl out of 3 years. And they're right. They're right on all that. I think Sirianni's a good coach. I don't know if I trust him, though, in situations.
You've been saying that since the beginning of these playoffs.
I've said
you've been down on the Eagles since the beginning of this
down
playoffs.
on Sirianni, not the Eagles.
Well, you didn't think that they were going to make it to the championship. You thought that there would be.
Well, I did once they played Washington. I thought they would lose.
Well, no, I mean, after they played Washington, of course you did. But before that, when we first started our series, you were down the Eagles, and that was the reason for it. You didn't like Sirianni. So I don't know if you think he's a good coach or you don't think he's a good coach.
He's a good coach. I just don't trust his coaching in big pivotal. Man,
pivotal.
Jesus loves me. Situations. I don't trust him because I've seen him make controversial decisions again and again and again. And I've seen a lot of them go against him. And that's why in Philadelphia, the fans there crush him because of it. And then the other reason is because their kicker, Elliott, has been struggling, man. I mean, I think he missed 2 extra points last game, and this has been going on throughout the season. He's a great kicker, but he's been struggling. And on Kansas City, Butker is about it, like you said earlier when you were comparing him to some of the greats. He's pretty much a can't miss dude. He's been great. So when I look at everything and I go, all right, well, I've got to go with the best player in the NFL, who in my opinion is Patrick Mahomes. I got to go with the best coach in the NFL, who in my opinion is Andy Reid. And then I'm going to go with the best kicker because these games, and Steve just kind of alluded to the fact that is why that 1 point doesn't, it's going to probably be a 3-point game. And in that instance, I have to give all 3 of those checks to Kansas City. So my brain's telling me the Eagles are the pick here, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm taking Kansas City to win the game and cover, obviously, but I'm definitely going to do the teaser that Steve Merril suggested, which would be teasing the Eagles to getting more than a touchdown and then teasing the over-under down. I'm definitely gonna do that. So that way, as I'm watching the game, because let's face it, when you don't have a team, you don't have a you could care who care less.
So you think it's going to be over and the Eagles plus 7.5?
Yeah, and I'll bet
a 6-point teaser.
Yep, and I'll bet the Eagles to. I mean, I'll bet.
So you're buying a win.
I could win all of them.
You're buying a win.
Yeah, if Kansas City wins by 3.
Yeah.
And the score is over 43, then I'm happy on all. Because listen, let's face it. Like I said, when you don't have a dog in the fight, you want to bet the Super Bowl to have fun. I mean, that's why we do all these props.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking at some of these crazy props, and that's why we do them. And it's to have a great time. That's why we do the parlay cards and the squares. At the lodge yesterday, I put 2 squares in, and I'm sure I'll put a couple more on there.
Well, it's not just fun for us; it's fun for the ladies, fun for the kids,
and the kids. I mean, our kids,
they win something.
Exactly. We always do squares for the kids, and they've done this since they were, little kids, 5, 6 years old. Some people might say, damn, you taught those kids, how to gamble at such an early age. And I would say to those people, I taught them a lot of shit at an early age.
It's a good life skill
probably
to know how to gamble.
Yeah, damn right. And so, yeah, the kids love it. And my kids have been lucky enough. I mean, Dylan, our producer over here, Dylan has won the square.
He has a horseshoe.
He's won like 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Like he's won the NFL pools. He's won the NASCAR pools. It drives his brother Connor crazy, that Dylan has the luck and wins these things, but he does. So yeah, man, that's part of the fun. And I'm excited with smoking the big pig and all the stuff that goes with it. And, you also at Super Bowl parties, everyone out there, can relate to the fact that you get to see people that you don't see a lot during the year. It's almost like a New Year's Eve party or something where you get to see friends and people that you don't normally get to see. And I always love that part of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's Monday right now. It's gonna be 72 degrees on Sunday for the Super Bowl, and my brain is already thinking of all the things we can do. And even on Saturday,
you better turn that pool on.
Yeah, we could heat the pool for sure because we'll definitely at 72 degrees. We'll be watching the games at the pool bar, or the porch, or up here.
It'll be all over. It's going to spill us with the pig cooking outside. All that smell.
It's going to be great. All my buddies,
watch out for the steaming divots.
All my buddies that are police officers out there. Yeah. If you could just ignore the calls on Sunday from like 2 in the afternoon to probably midnight. Just give us a break on that.
Or come join us, one of the two.
Or come join us. We've had both of those happen before. Cops coming to the house as well as them join us.
They don't drink, but they have a good. They might try a little, pork butt.
Make sure, give them a little to-go play. Yeah. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us. We're looking forward to the Super Bowl and all the festivities that come along with it, as I know you are. Before we go, though, I'm going to give Frank like 2 minutes. And Frank played in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, against Tom Brady, against Bill Belichick, on the greatest show on turf, playing with Hall of Famers on his team, such as Marshall Faulk and Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt, hopefully soon to be, your left tackle,
Orlando
Pace. Then you had guys, just a great team. A
lot of Hall of Famers and me.
Yeah. Well, but you had a great year that year. Yeah. So give us just a 1 or 2 minute thing. So, you get to the hotel all the way to the team meeting before in the Super Bowl and the end of the game, especially being on the losing side of that. Give us the 2 minute, if you wrote a diary back then, what would it have looked like?
Before or after the game?
I want all of it.
Well, before the game, obviously the excitement, the enthusiasm, your heart rate's going, everything you've worked for your entire life is to get to that point.
Did you have to handle getting tickets to everybody, or did your agent handle that?
We did that before. When I went, we only had 1 week because it was the 9/11 year, 2001, 2002 Super Bowl with Tom Brady. It was his first victory against the Patriots. That 17-14 game where we had fought, or 2017 game. They took it to us in that first half. It had us down 13 or 14-3, I think is what the score was. We come back, they go up 17 to 10 or 17-6, and we ended up tying the score up with a Ricky Pearl touchdown with about 1:15 left, and kicked the ball off, and Tom Brady, they had a decision to make. And I don't know if you remember, Madden was doing the game. He goes, well, with the young quarterback like this, not really having the experience, this is too much to ask. You just take the knee and you get into overtime and you go see what happens, right? You don't want to make a mistake. How much time was left? About 1:15, 1:17. They went, they had to go, 40, 50 yards to do it. And, when you look at it and you talk about missed tackles, or games that, plays that change games, we kept them in front of us. We made sure they're not going, have an opportunity, to go out there and score a big play on us, and you try to keep it in front of them. And they threw a little dump pass to one of the running backs out of the backfield, and we had a missed tackle. They took 14 yards and put him in field goal range. And, Adam Vinatieri became Adam Vinatieri. I mean, that year, if you remember, that was also the tuck rule, where Tom Brady fumbled the ball against the Raiders. And Vinatieri kicked arguably, one of the greatest kicks in history of the NFL in that snow game.
Right.
Where he was cleaning off that spot and, drilled a 45 yarder to get to the Super Bowl against the Raiders. And then, to kick a 50.
That was the game with the controversial call too, with Charles Woodson. Wasn't that the when Brady was throwing the ball?
Rule.
The tuck rule.
That's the tuck rule. Yeah, that was the tuck rule, where he was throwing the ball. It looked like it slipped, empty hand, type of thing. And that's they deemed it was an incomplete pass, and they kept the ball, and the rest is history. But after the game, you talk about, going into, we had played the Patriots earlier that year and took a knee at their place in Foxborough, on the about the 5-yard line, to run the clock out. And so we, weren't trying to run the score up because I think that, Martz respected Belichick and vice versa. But, this is a different team. And Martz told us that going into the game, that, this isn't the same team that we were playing back then. They had gotten better because of this guy.
Right.
This young guy. And coaches know when you see momentum and a talent and teams playing harder for somebody, and they were playing harder for Tom Brady. And, they came out, unified. We came out individually, it's as you normally would.
Yep.
They introduced the defense. Everybody came running out, and, they were interlocked arms, walking out, on a seek and destroy mission. And,
When you guys saw those guys coming out like that, is that something you even pay attention to?
No, it's just, I mean, you've seen it a million times. Those things, I mean, if you're watching the sideline as a fan, you might get a little bit more, oh, look at they're holding hands. And,
right.
It's Leonidas and, against the 500 taking on the Persian army,
right.
At the gates of hell. No, it really wasn't. We don't think that. I mean, we go out there. Okay. They're going to come out together as a team. We've done that a million times. Let's go play the game now. Right.
Who sang the national anthem of your game?
I have no idea. I mean, those are the things
that's what the reason I brought that up is because when you're in halftime, it's an extended halftime period. We talked earlier.
Don't even know who halftime performers were.
Yeah, you're just in there.
Don't even care.
Don't
Didn't
give
even
a
care.
damn.
Didn't care. All I cared about was
they're still taking the crap off the field.
Well, it's you kind of have that internal clock. Okay, you go in there. You normally have a time, to get something to drink. You make your adjustments. You have your little power bar, whatever you need to kind of get yourself going in that second half, and then you're kind of rushing to go.
Yeah.
Right. And then we still had 15 minutes. You still had 20 minutes to go. And 20 minutes, when you're waiting for time like that is an eternity.
Especially when you're having all that adrenaline.
Yeah, I mean,
you have to kind of bring it down, and then you've got to bring it back up.
We had the most adjustments to make because they were kicking our ass.
Yeah,
physically, they were beating us up. Belichick changed the game plan and started jamming receivers and was going to get physical with those guys in those corners that they had and throw us off of our timing routes. And it worked, so we adjusted in the second half. We used different protections and we let our athletes run, and he started moving the ball a little bit more efficiently, getting Marshall Faulk the ball out of the backfield, those type of things. But after the game, everybody has kind of, a celebration planned. Nobody's expecting to lose the game.
Sure.
So, we have where our hotel is at. It was downtown New Orleans where it's at this year. I think we're at the Marriott right across the street from the Superdome. And, we had this big party planned, and Nelly was doing our post party, and, we expected to win. We're 14-point favorites, and, all the Hall of Famers are there. All the past guys are there. Jackie Slater's, Jack Youngblood, all the former Rams that were the greats were there, to help us celebrate and to be a part of that. Well, it didn't turn out the way we thought, obviously. And Nelly gets up on stage, and probably the most awkward song he's ever sang. And this was when he came out with that country grammar record.
It's getting hot in here.
It was all the songs combined. It was the album,
like a greatest.
Yeah, it was a country grammar album that he had,
gotcha.
in St. Louis. That's where he was from. And the first song he sang was "What Does It Take to Be Number One." And we're sitting here, and it's supposed to be a celebration. We're all supposed to be up there dancing. What does it take to be number one? And I'm not going to try to pretend I know the rest of the words,
right?
But, that was the song that we had to hear.
I'm guessing the party was just kind of quiet.
It was the most awkward, dull party that you could ever imagine. I mean, I remember the wins; they felt good. But the losses, I can remember losing to Green Bay. I can remember most of my losses, big losses, in my in my career. And I remember the wins okay, but not like the losses. The losses hurt way more than the wins felt good.
Especially that one when you're in the Super Bowl and you have no idea.
I'm sitting there. You have my
get back.
Well, I mean, where's my ring?
Yeah.
Where's my ring?
So when you lose the Super Bowl, you obviously don't get a ring. You get an NFC championship.
You get an NFC championship ring, but if you win, you get an NFC championship and a Super Bowl ring.
Right.
2 rings.
And you get paid even more money, even if you
lose, so right? The structure of I don't know what it is now, but back then it was like first game of the playoffs, a wild card was like $7,500 for the teams. If you win, you get $10,000 for the next game. The next game you get 20, and then the Super Bowl, the winner gets 100 and something. And the loser gets like 56 or 60,000.
Yeah.
As a bonus, and for guys that were making a lot of money, it didn't mean that much to them. You're making $5, $6, $7 million a year. That's going to be okay. That's a nice car for me. It's something for my wife. I get her, go buy a vacation house, whatever it might be.
Right. And
I'm making it sound poo-poo in it, but it's a lot of money.
Sure.
And for guys that are making 250,000, it's double their income. So, it's a big deal for a lot of the guys that are out there, because not everybody's making $5, $6 million.
Right. Well,
and we had to live for that. I mean, still to this day, it's kind of like, what would have happened if? How would my life have changed if?
Being a Super Bowl champion.
Being a Super Bowl champ, having that ring, calling myself a Super Bowl champion, being the best in the world at what you did. Because I still think that team, was better than the Patriots. Just not that day. We beat that team, 8 times out of 10 if we played them again.
Well, and to be transparent, that's the game that allegedly Belichick had the cheating going on.
That was the first one, and I can tell you exactly what took place because I was out there, and there's we have every team puts in about 5 or 6 plays for a new opponent, and if you've played that team before, you got to have those impact plays that you're putting in that you're expecting to provide impact, on first downs,
that they've not
short
seen
yardage
before,
that they've never seen, they've never scouted.
Yeah,
new packages that you're going to put in that have about a handful of plays. Well. Yep. We had done that with Marshall Faulk, where we were going to put him in a position, where he's normally not, he's never been. And they already, and on the other side, they start calling out, watch this play. They already knew our play. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, you're not really thinking about that at that moment in the game. But after you have time to sit back and reflect, you come to the sideline and go, God damn, they're in our playbook.
Yeah.
How the hell they know what we're calling out there? We've never done this before. And
were the coaches actively saying that, looking the players that we all going,
no, they don't know that they can't hear. Yeah, they can't hear that they're calling out our plays and where exactly the ball's going. And, even if they did, we still have to execute. I mean, because part of the skill of, an NFL player and evolving and staying long is, studying. So a lot of times the other team, contrary to popular belief, it's not magic calls being made up. It's the timing of those calls when they happen.
Right.
But if you don't know what they're running when they get in this formation, you haven't done your homework.
Right.
Right. You should know your opponent where they get in this formation. This is what play they're running. Now I got to go stop it.
Yeah.
Right. And there's, like I said, 3 or 4 plays, 5 plays that, you're like, okay, now let's sit back. We're going to play a vanilla defense. And we're going to adjust and react to what they're doing. Okay. And, when you have that advantage and you're not expecting that, it's that could be a first down, which a first down could lead to a touchdown. It leads to extra plays, and you never know. But at the point, we didn't really think it was a big deal. But afterwards, looking back on it, they have my ring. Yeah,
no doubt. I mean, I could see that staying with you and having a little bitter taste to this day on it. Well, I can guarantee you that the food Sunday here won't have any bitter taste unless we want it.
That's going to help me out. It's going to help me forget about it.
Yeah, we'll help you forget about it.
A lot of that alcohol might help me forget about it.
Krista's
old fashions
will take care of that. Frank's got the Eagles. I've got the Chiefs. Both of us think it'll be a close game, probably within a touchdown.
Whoever runs the ball the best and stops the run is going to win this game.
Well, to me, that would make me say Eagles again, but I'm still going with the Chiefs. Thanks to Steve Merril for joining us again. You can find him at wagertalk.com. He's fantastic in all sports. Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Big D, over there producing the show for us.
And thank you out there for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys. Again, spread the word, please. Subscribe when you can, please. Follow us on our socials. We've got some new ones that'll be coming out soon, some new handles.
Got big things happening, bud.
Yeah, please follow us and spread the word, and email us any suggestions, or if you we'd love to hear from you, like I said, or if your kids are in college and the rest of that. So thank you again for tuning in to Suit Up Sports. We'll be back later this week or after the Super Bowl.